lead us tonight in the Pledge of Allegiance as well as the national anthem. It will be followed by a moment of solemn expression, so please just stay there, don't leave, by Father George Okusi, perfect, of St. John the Divine Episcopal Church. So, please stand.
Let us pray. Always loving and gracious God, we pause before the work of this council meeting to give thanks, share our agenda with you, and to pray for our city, our people, and all the leaders. Guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech, so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. Allow us to grow closer as a group and nurture the bonds of community. Continue to remind us that all that we do here this evening, all that we accomplish, is for the pursuit of truth, for the greater glory of you, and for the service of humanity. We pray for all our elected officials entrusted with the holy calling of public service. We pray for the mayor. We pray for all the council members, mayor pro tem, city manager, city attorney, and everyone in their respective offices and responsibilities. Lord, keep them pure in heart. We also thank you that we are so blessed to have men and women who work diligently for our safety and well-being, even when their jobs are difficult and often thankless. We pray for the law enforcement team, fire department, even our security dog officers, all first responders and ambulance workers, 911 operators, and social workers. Help us to remember to thank you for their sacrifices and service to our community. We pray for the service organizations and medical facilities that are caring for the poor and the homeless, caring for the sick, mentally ill, elderly, and dying. We pray for the business community and pray for our schools. We commit our teachers, students, administrations, principals and superintendents, school boards, and all for the facilities protection, O Lord. Remind us of the truth of Jeremiah in the welfare of the city. We will find our own welfare. In all we do, in all we say, may we seek the welfare of this city. All this we ask and believe in your holy and mighty name. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, students. We appreciate you coming and starting our meeting. It makes it so nice. Thank you. Okay. City Clerk, may we please have the roll call?
Let the record reflect that all council members are present except Councilmember Mansour.
City Attorney, Ms. Barlow, any report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There is nothing to report from closed session today.
All right. We have no presentations tonight. It's now time for public comments. If you would like to speak on an item that is not on our council agenda, please come to one of the two podiums and you will be given 3 minutes to express your comments to the council. And at this time, we will go ahead and get started with the speaker.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. This 45-year resident of Costa Mesa and 45 years as a renter, and I believe that the city does have some, that renters deserve some civic consideration and maybe some specific actions. This is my 5th time appearing on this issue, and I think Greta is teaching me resilience and between Hamilton, between Harbor and Thurin, the parking is a mess for the renters, and soon the street is going to be resurfaced, and I'm hoping that, I don't know, efficiencies will prevail, and we could mark the individual spaces. If that happened every night, that would open up about 5 different parking spaces just by people having some guidance. We have stripes down the center of the road to guide people. Other cities have that. I think that would be a real advantage for the neighborhood. If I get home late, like I've got to park 3 blocks away because it's just packed. Individual spaces marked. I mean, some individual homeowners, they're not renters, are actually doing that. It's a vigilante move. Last week, or last meeting, okay. Covina, Cypress, Costa Mesa, there's a lot of indistinct cities, right? They all have Targets, they all have Del Tacos, they all have gas stations. What sets cities apart are the jewels that they have. Some cities are fortunate to have them. Fountain Valley has Mile Square. Huntington Beach has Central Park. Irvine, everywhere. They just landscaped that thing. That's a beautiful place. Costa Mesa has Fairview Park, as long as it's left kind of as an open space. I don't know, I've heard rumors over the years. Hopefully we can just keep our hands off that sucker and leave it open. Beautification doesn't just mean creating a nice, central area of the street. As I drive through there, I wish we'd move backwards and take out some of the city lights. We all live in light pollution. Why not a little darkness? I think we could almost kind of set a standard for an understanding of what can decompress certain citizens as we pass through that area up that road. Open space is really important. We've got a lot of hodgepodge development, like everybody knows a developer. I hope you will consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. And sir, we're not ignoring your request as far as the parking goes, but we have, I don't know if you were here when the city manager shared at the last meeting, but we have begun a parking study program, and we are addressing the parking. It might not be by next meeting, but we are addressing it, and I think those ideas are good, and Mr. Setharaman will probably look into the
Okay,
the
thank you.
signage.
See you next meeting.
Thank you. Okay.
Hi,
Good
my name is
evening.
Holly Swiddleson. Good evening.
Gay Royer, and we're here, we're with the Costa Mesa Lions Club, and we're here to represent for Phil Marsh, who is actually up in Tahoe hiking, and so he sent us down, and we wanted to say how much we so appreciate and love all the help that the city council, the city staff, the fire, the police have given us in our event for the fish fry and also for our first-time golf tournament, both which were very, very successful. We just wanted to come down. He wanted us to tell you how much we appreciated all that you do. We're very much looking forward to going home next year to where it started. And this is our 72nd year. And so we also will be giving, we haven't got all the numbers yet, but we'll have our allocation dinner in the near future. And if any of you would like to attend to see actually where all this money goes, we'd be happy to have you. So reach out, and Phil says thank you. Sorry he's not here.
We say thank you.
We say thank you.
Just don't have the meeting on a Tuesday, and we could maybe
Well,
go.
we're missing our end of the year dinner, so,
I know.
but we're here because we love you.
Thank you. Congratulations. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Foley and Mayor Pro Tem Stevens and City Council members. My name is Brian Lockery. I represent the Transportation Corridor Agencies, commonly known as the Orange County Toll Roads. It is a publicly owned toll roads represented by City Council members and supervisors from throughout the region, represented here in Costa Mesa by Mayor Foley and Mayor Pro Tem Stevens as your alternate. And I'm here tonight to just remind the council and remind the public that TCA is rolling out the new sticker transponders. You may have received a card like this in the mail, and if you open it up, you would see a small sticker like this. The sticker just peels off, and it goes right on your windshield, either in the lower left, the lower right, or up by your rear view mirror. And it takes the place of this boxy transponder. It does have some benefits as well. If you rarely use the toll roads and you have a transponder like this, you may be charged up to $2 a month fee. The sticker has no monthly fee to it, so there's a financial benefit to that as well. Just as a reminder, you will get one sticker for every vehicle you have on your account. So the stickers aren't transferable. Once you put them on, they need to stay on for good in that location. Once you take it off, you'll need to call to get a new sticker because there is an antenna in here that'll break. So once you put it on your vehicle, that's where it stays. The first time you go through a toll plaza, this will match up with your license plate, and that's how it will identify. It does have RFID, so there's no beep. A lot of people will call and say, my sticker's not working because I don't hear a beep. The hard case transponders have batteries. These do not. So there's no beep to it, but it is working. And then the last thing I'll mention is if you have a hard case transponder that has the switch on it, the 1, 2, and 3, you do get a discount on the LA toll roads if you have a 2 or a 3. So if you're driving the 10 or the 110 freeway, you may want to hang on to this so you can get that discount. While it will read both, it will take the lower fee. So if you're driving up in LA, it's a good idea to hang on to this. But if you don't take the LA toll roads, the sticker is interoperable to every toll road throughout the state. So whether you're on the Golden Gate Bridge or the 110 or the 73 toll road, the sticker will work. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Good evening, council members. Stephen Chan for the record. I'm excited to be here. Newport Harbor, TAR, Sailors, 7-0. It's been a long time. I'd yield some of my time for y'all to give them a round of applause. Please. 7-0, Newport Harbor, the best start in many, many years, y'all. Don't want to give it up for them. How about last Saturday, the South Coast Invitational Marching Band Contest was held at the Costa Mesa High School, and the Newport Harbor contingent, 42 members strong, many of whom live in the southern part of our city, District 4 and District 5, attend Newport Harbor. They got the silver trophy. There's a big props to them for that. So I wanted just to jump around on some other different subjects. I've been reading in the paper that Newport Beach is maybe negotiating to use some of the temporary shelter capacity. And, you know, I didn't really follow that real close, what y'all did with that, but I'm hoping that there's a sunset there and that we're not really looking to expand that. So many times over the last 25 years that I've been in that neighborhood. Those types of social services, while necessary, and yes, we know that they're necessary, well, in some ways, they can become a great big boat anchor. I really think it's time for the two cities to actually consider merging. If not seriously, at least investigate it on paper. Let's jump to another subject. The small lot ordinance. I think District 4 is time to have some modifications to the small lot ordinance to empower property owners there. Not developers, property owners. Especially Latino property owners. There's a lot of my neighbors. They got 2 houses on a lot, but that small lot ordinance, the way it's writ out now, you got to scrape the whole darn thing down, and then you can split it up and sell it off. Both the last 2 ideas I said would just unlock a tremendous real estate value here on the west side of Costa Mesa. And I think that it's time to start really talking about it and considering it. There's a lot of good to come out of that. And I know that all of y'all know that I've been communicating with you quite heavily regarding the ABC licensees. And I hope that you redouble your efforts to make sure that you hold to your campaign promises and restore our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Chan, we had our meeting last week. I do have an appointment with Smart and Final this week to meet with them, okay?
And thank you so much.
You're welcome. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. Tonight's dog park chapter is entitled Sick Dogs. About 12 years ago, our small dog park enjoyed the distinction of being the premier small dog park in the county. People were coming from all over, and it became so overcrowded as to present health concerns. Some of our dogs were getting sick, nothing life-threatening, but we noticed that whenever we were absent from the park for a few weeks or more, our dogs got healthier. Eye infections, skin conditions, our dogs' general health all improved the longer we stayed away from the dog park. And when we returned, the reverse would occur. What was happening was the grass clippings were left to accumulate, along with leaves from the large old trees, all waiting for the worms to do their job. What we had here was a compost bin contaminated by huge amounts of dog urine and poop. As one of the 4 directors of the Costa Mesa Park Foundation at the time, and as the de facto leader or shop steward, if you will, of the small dog park contingent, I met with the maintenance manager. He refused any help. I was very disappointed. This matter was not his problem. I brought this up at our next meeting, asking if we could appeal to the city manager, parks commissioners, or city council. The president informed me that nothing could ever happen in a small dog park that could give rise to a level that would cause them to pick a fight with the city on any level. But behind the back of their president and myself, a number of concerned members conducted their own due diligence review, which confirmed the seriousness of this problem. At a subsequent monthly meeting, they caught me by surprise by making an offer. Find an outside service that could work on the cheap to clean up the area for more than $250 a month. I jumped on it. Providence led me to such a service in the form of a young man named Alejandro. We met in the park. He agreed to the standards I set, subject to 4 conditions. First, he and his assistant would come to the park every Saturday morning just before the crack of dawn. Second, if it rained, he would not come. Third, on those Saturdays his son had soccer, he would come on Sunday instead of Saturday. And fourth, he required $300 a month. We shook hands on the deal. After a month or so, Alejandro was able to catch up with the backlog, and an amazing thing happened. No more sick dogs. In the first year, every 2 months or so, I would visit the dog park at around dawn on Saturday and find Alejandro and his wife with blower and rakes, raking all that mess into big, black, hefty bags, which would be dragged over to the parking lot dumpster. This arrangement at $300 a month continued for more than 6 years, including several years past my retirement. The reason I'm bringing this up is that because we appear to be going full circle. The park is getting filthy. Very little cleanup is being done in there. I don't see any serious health concerns. We have less than half the dogs. There are far fewer clippings, and the area is larger in size than in the past. What I'm asking for is maintenance provide the same level of service that is being provided in Tewinkle Park, including the area in and around the skate park. Nothing more, nothing less. That should work fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Foley, Mayor Pro Tem Stevens, Carl Off, Costa Mesa resident. Since they don't do the Costa Mesa minute, this Saturday and Sunday will be the Scarecrow Festival at Go Hill Johnson Parks and Community Service Department FVP Restoration and Civic train rides, face painting, arts and crafts, pocket pads and decorating, Costa Mesa mobile restoration. From it will be from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. and on Halloween over at the senior center from 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. for $5. I don't know if that's per person or per family. It's the Monster Bass, and I took a few of the pictures from the television screens so I can read them off.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll see you there. Next speaker, please.
Mayor Foley, council members, my name's Darlene Witzel. I live at 2408 Orange Avenue, and the last time I was in front of you speaking, it was regarding a sober recovery home at 2417 Orange Avenue, which you upheld a denial for their operating permit.
I'm going to pause you just 1 second. Can we pause the time? Are you here for that item that's on our agenda regarding the sober living home?
Okay, that's next door to me, because,
Okay,
you know,
because
God,
that
they're all around
item,
me.
this is just public comment right now.
Okay, but
We're
I'm-
not ready for that item.
Okay, I'm not talking about next door.
Oh, okay, so you're not here for the item that's on our agenda?
No.
Okay, very good,
That- yeah,
continue.
That's my next door neighbors.
Okay, continue.
So you upheld the denial of the permit for the one across the street. That was 22 months ago. They're still operating with 100 vehicles coming in and out of that property. I want to know why they're still operating. If I owned a dress shop in this city, if I owned a coffee shop in this city, and you took my permit away, you better believe that you would make sure that my doors were closed and I could not operate my business. You're not going to send me a letter from code enforcement saying, oh, you're in violation, you're in violation. That's not going to happen. But this business across the street, it's a business across the street from me that has 22 beds at $26,000 every 30 days. That's $78,000. You know how much money they have made in the last 20 months?
I'm going to pause your time one more time, just so I don't take into your time. Can you pause our time? Okay. Ms. Barlow, is this one of the matters where that we're getting sued on, or no?
I don't know if we're getting sued on this one. I was just trying to check that against the address.
Okay.
Mr. Curtis might know.
Actually, I'm trying to look up an email from Tarquin on that matter as well. So.
They're not.
We are involved in litigation where we're getting sued, and we are also suing to
Right.
abate nuisances. So that may be one of the properties, and that may be the reason for the delay.
So I wanted to pause your time because I want them to be able to answer your question. So I'll let you finish, and then they'll look it up, and somebody will come down and talk to you about it before you leave, okay?
Okay. It's just.
I know, it's frustrating. We are equally frustrated, not as frustrated as you, certainly.
I gave you guys a list of all the vehicles coming in and out of that property. One day that I was sick, just in and out, in and out, in and out.
I remember.
There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of vehicles coming in and out of that property still. And these kids are all over the neighborhood. We were here that time because the one next door to me is the one that we were trying to save versus the one across the street with 22 beds. And they're a nuisance. But they're still operating. So as far as I know, that you're not being sued and they're not suing.
We're going to look it up, and we will have an answer for you before you leave here, okay?
Actually, Madam Mayor, I found
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I knew I brought it. The city, Everett Dory, on behalf of the city, filed an abatement action against 2417 Orange northbound on November 25th of this year.
Okay, so not last year. So we're in litigation against them.
I'm sorry, September 25th of this year.
September, okay. So a couple weeks ago, we filed litigation against them to be able to shut that down, okay? Yeah, we have to go through a process.
You know, I
and
got the
it's-
rebate on my taxes. I mean, seriously.
Okay.
I think all this,
Thank
we'd
you.
all like a rebate on our taxes because
We would all
something's
like
not
all
getting
that money
done.
back that we have to spend for these kinds of abusive operators. We agree. We're trying. Sorry.
Well, you're trying, but everything seems to take so long. Everything takes forever in this city. My
It's
son
not-
works for
it's
the
not
city
the
of
city.
Irvine, and the city of Irvine, this doesn't happen in Irvine. This doesn't happen in Irvine.
This happens in every city where there are sober living homes. So we are actually in litigation against them to try to address your concerns. And we are under the auspices of the court right now. So that process is underway. And I will make sure that somebody gives you regular updates so that you can know what's happening, okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Hi, good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. I'm Claudia Perez Figueroa, Senior Field Rep for Assemblywoman Cotty Petrie Norris. And some of you may have met, I have a new colleague here for our office.
Hi, good evening. Kate Voorhees. This is my second day in the office, so very happy to be here with you all tonight. We have a couple events that we wanted to bring up this evening, and I'm going to let Claudia take the lead.
So that's why it's low. So, so we're very excited. Not only are we going to tell you about a few events that are coming up, we're also going to give you a brief legislative update for the Assemblywoman. So the very first one we're going to talk about is going to be happening on Friday, November 1st, right here in Costa Mesa. The Assemblywoman will be hosting her inaugural Veterans Day Award celebration. So we're really excited about that. That's going to be happening from 10 to 11:30 right here at Heroes Hall. So we do invite you all in the community to come out and join us, please, because we, of course, want to honor all of our veterans, those who've served and currently serving. And we do also, it's right in a neighboring city here in Irvine, we will be having the Women's Self-Defense Workshop coming up, a senior scam stopper to help our seniors, and a local community coffee happening. And I do have some flyers that I'll be leaving here as well. So if you have any information or need any information, this is also on our website as well. So we do invite everyone to come out and join because these are some of the last events we're going to be having for the year. So we're really excited about to wrap up our first year. And with that, we've also just wrapped up our 2019 legislative package, and this governor has now concluded session. And we're very proud to announce that out of the 12 legislative bills that went before the governor, 11 were signed into bills. So that is very impressive. We've worked closely with your city as well, so we thank you for all the collaboration, working together. We look forward to continuing doing so. My colleague and I will remain for the rest of the meeting as well. If you have any questions for us, want to talk about any of the legislation, we're happy to be here. And as always, thank you.
Thank you, and please thank the Assemblywoman for carrying bills that will address sober living homes.
Yes, shout out to Cotty Petrie She's putting teeth into the laws. She's tightening the laws. She's changing the laws. She didn't just make promises. She's actually doing something about it. Shout out to that. Okay, so my heart goes out to my neighbor here. I'm glad she came and spoke. And while we were standing there this afternoon talking, the northbound house had vans going in and out, had guys wandering in and out. They're not supposed to be doing that at that property. Vaping and smoking as they walk down the sidewalk. How come you can code enforce every day a marijuana dispensary? Every day you can find them. Why can't you do this to a sober living facility? Please, let's just do it. Let's stop talking about it. Let's just do it. Okay, so Saturday night I was at a Jimmy Buffett concert, which is the most fun thing on earth. And then, you know that song, if we didn't laugh, we'd all go insane. So I'm over there at the task force meeting about about the homeless shelter they're trying to cram on Superior, which is basically going to be in West Side and East and West Side, Newport and Costa Mesa. And I almost started, that song popped into my head because this is the last Tuesday night of their city council meeting. The mayor said, oh, I didn't realize we still had a problem on the west side with the homeless. Hello? And then today, one of the people said right up there on the dais, oh, we didn't realize till a few years ago we had a problem. And 2 weeks ago at the Orange County Supervisors meeting, they said the same thing. So there's being wealthy is not a sin. But when you become blind, it's like a side effect or something happens to you when you become wealthy. How can you drive around Newport, Costa Mesa, and Huntington Beach and not see what is happening around here? I'm just kind of shocked. So Please, the Newport Beach, I feel the residents of Newport Beach and their city council should really be embarrassed. You cannot believe what I hear over there. Like today, this lady got up and said, well, I'm not even going to tell you. But anyway, my point being that we should be really proud of our Costa Mesa city present council, because they are proactive. They're not just reactive. They actually took the bull by the horns and did something. What they're doing over there is Band-Aid. It's not going to cut the mustard. But wait, I just have to say this. They're about to spend $8 million on a library lecture hall expansion, but they don't want to put 1 penny into a homeless shelter. That says a lot about their city, doesn't it?
Good evening, Mr. Taboda.
Good evening. Several times a week, I'm on Joanne Bike Trail, and I pass what was formerly, I guess, the Costa Mesa. I don't know if it's the motel or motor inn, whatever. Anyway, it's a pile of dirt, lots of weeds, a lot of big piles of gravel, and I'm just wondering what's going on with that property. If somebody on staff or council could maybe get a brief update to the residents. As long as that sits idle, there's no property taxes. As long as there's no residents, there's no people living there collecting sales tax. So just what's going on? Plus, it's an eyesore. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, council members.
Can whoever has their cell phone on, please turn it off? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. 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 We'll start his time over.
Please.
My apologies.
It's all right. I had to run out last weekend because obviously there was another pressing thing happening, and it was handled. What I'd like you guys to do is handle the stuff at hand. The dog park is an issue. Number one, the city is maintaining a public nuisance. They're not maintaining the park. Second of all, it's a public health situation. And you've been put on notice, and you guys are aware of that. So every day is a separate violation. What's going on? It's not going to cut mustard in court. It's a double-edged sword. Code enforcement comes and hits people with it. And if it's going to get to that point, why? How many millions have we spent on sober living? This is the most popular park and used park in town. Why can't we fix it? You guys are collecting park fees. If the city can't handle it, maybe we should lease it out, privatize it. Let somebody else come in and handle it and manage it. It's not a big deal. It's not millions of dollars. We don't have to hire a third party to investigate what needs to be done. Apply common sense. That's all you need. And it's truly simple. I've offered my assistance to the matter, free of charge. I can do it. But you won't move an inch. So on that point, please, you can get a hold of me. I'd love to sit down and give you guys some ideas. Stephen, is it time? Is 6 months long enough? Because when I lose my patience, it's not a good thing. And I'm about to lose my patience because Mr. Dakota is not happy at home. He wants to go and run in the park. And I can't take him there because he's going to get ill. And then I would have to stick the city with the vet bill. And how would that work? It wouldn't work very well. I'm coming before you. I'm pleading with you. Please, set aside time so we can discuss this and we can move forward. You're putting islands in the middle of Harbor Boulevard that impedes traffic. For that, we found grant money and federal money. Can't we find money to do this? Kids go there with their little dogs. It's not just adults with dogs. It's for everybody's use. So please, let's move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have no further speakers, and so we will move on to councilmember committee reports, comments, and suggestions. This is the time for the council members to provide comments and committee reports. If you wish to speak, please add your name to the queue. Each council member is limited to 4 minutes. We'll begin with Councilmember Guinness.
I was really happy to see Pastor George here today. And I wanted to thank St. John the Divine for having the blessing of the animals, what was it, the Sunday before last. And I suddenly realized that we should have had our police dogs out. So if Pastor George were here, I would have asked him to kind of detour over and do that with our dogs. But anyway, mosquitoes. We just had our first case of St. Louis equine encephalitis reported in Orange County since 1987. Actually, it's the first mosquito that's positive for that disease, not Costa Mesa. It was up in Anaheim and Westminster, but that's very serious. As I said, haven't seen that since 1987 in Orange County. So once again, if you have a flower pot on your patio, dump out the water. If you have, it could even be a flower pot in your house, because in the wintertime, a mosquito gets in your house, then it's nice and warm, and next thing you know, you're growing mosquitoes in your potted plants. So anything that you have where it's standing water, dump it. If you see something on city property where there's standing water, let us know, because we need to get it cleaned up, whether it's regrading a little drainage ditch someplace, or some of our walkways tend to have constant ponding. This is a really serious issue. And I appreciated the first gentleman with his comment regarding marking the parking places, because I was looking at a street in my neighborhood where we tend to have spillover, from which we have spillover onto my street sometimes. And I noticed that there was a very inefficient use of the parking, where there'd be a couple cars and then a space almost big enough for a car, but not quite, and then a few more cars. And so had the cars been spaced more efficiently, there would have been room for a whole bunch more. So I appreciate that gentleman for bringing that up. And anyway, that's it. But remember, dump it or drain it, because this is serious. We're getting diseases that we hadn't seen in a long time, and we'll be having new ones because of also climate change, bringing out different types of mosquitoes. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Reynolds.
Okay, so this has been a very busy month. I think we say this every month, and I feel like we're accelerating to the end of the year. But so I just wanted to start with some thank yous to our staff who know I often have a lot of questions, and you guys are great at giving me answers. Very, very knowledgeable and helpful, and appreciate everything you do. Thank you to Assemblywoman Cotty Petrie-Norris for the legislation that's very targeted to respond to issues that we've asked her to work on. And thank you to all of the residents who are feeding us with ideas about what we should be focusing our attention on, and ideas on how to solve some of the issues in the city. I was out. Was this last night? I don't even remember. Late into the evening with some of our bike committee members focused on some safety issues. And I just appreciate all of the time that everyone spends on all of the issues in Costa Mesa. So quickly, a few really great events. I want to say congratulations to Girls Inc. on their International Day of the Girl. It's always neat to be in that space where I was a Girls Inc. girl about 30 years ago. It's hard to say that. Congrats to Boys and Girls Club on their grand opening today, and to the Early Childhood Coalition for a fantastic event. We had a packed house at the library to launch this coalition focused on supporting a robust early childhood in Costa Mesa. If you have questions about that, please do send those questions to myself and Mayor Pro Tem John Stevens. Congrats to Friends of the Library on their musical instruments at the Mesa Verde Library, and on a great event with author Victor Villaseñor this weekend at the Donald Dungan Library. And congrats to Soy on their band, really good band, who you can see again this coming weekend at the Fall in Love with the West Side Festival. This is just going to be a lot of events. So coming up, I want to encourage folks who maybe didn't tune in to our study session last week to watch that study session. We've started the discussion on housing in the city and how we're going to address, or strategies to address some of the housing needs and new housing requirements coming down the pipeline. Really, really interesting discussion, and I think we all welcome ideas from the public on that. You may have seen us all wearing a lot of pink because of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. This is also Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I attended an event with Human Options, which is a resource. Oh, Brenda, sorry, this is picture number 1. If we can get that up there. Thank you. So Domestic Violence Awareness Month, unfortunately, this domestic violence is something that is fairly prevalent in throughout Orange County. I'm learning some of the stats on this and discussing or also learning some strategies to address this. We do have a resource in the city, Human Options, that provides a lot of support as well as safe housing for anybody who may be a victim of domestic violence. Do we have that?
No picture.
Okay, we'll get that information out and available to people. Want to encourage folks to, there's a lot going on this weekend, and those events are listed at the back of your agenda. A couple events that are not on that list are Veg Fest. This is at the OC Fairgrounds, a vegan festival. I am not a vegan, but I'm excited about this event because they're making a big effort to go zero waste. And that's something that I hope the fairgrounds would continue afterwards. So I encourage you to go out there and see what they're doing to try to reduce waste at that event. On Sunday, October 20th, I'm doing my 5th community bike ride. We're exploring the city north of the 405. This will be our longest ride. It's a 10-mile ride, but completely flat. And it's going to be a really fun ride with a lot of different sites. We ride right through South Coast Plaza, through the Performing Arts Center by the new site of the Museum of Art. Please do join us on that. You can find on my social media the information, because I don't think we have it up here. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next up is Councilmember Marr. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to speak? Well, no, you're next, but if you weren't in the queue. Okay. Councilmember Chavez.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to today's meeting. It was important to make sure you push the button to speak, so just know that. Had a great past 2 weeks. Had a great time with my family at the fire open house on Fire Station 4 next to Estancia High School. I went with my little sister, and it was really amazing seeing all the apparatuses and learning from our firefighters what techniques they do to keep us safe in Costa Mesa. I'm very grateful for that. And there's a tidbit I want to share with everyone that I learned when I was there. It's a simple phrase called close before you doze. So if you ever see a fire, it actually needs oxygen to grow and fester. So if you sleep with your doors closed, you actually have a little safe bubble in your room. In case of the fire, you have more time for someone to help you out. So close before you doze. That's the big tenet I learned at that event. Also had the pleasure of attending the Soy Night at the Met this past Friday. Great time supporting a local nonprofit, Save Our Youth. For those that don't know, it's a true gem in Westside Costa Mesa in my district. I'm actually a product of Save Our Youth, and it's an organization that provides our Westside residents with free tutoring, free activities such as skateboarding, snowboarding, hikes, a really great resource for our community, and it's always a pleasure for me to serve and give back to those that help me and those in my community. And with that, I'm gonna take a bit of a somber note. Recently in my district, there was a passing of a friend of mine, Jesus Carrillo Reyes, former Soy alumni and alumni of high school. It was hard for the community, but as those who know, in the Hispanic culture, there's this thing called a kermes, which is a fundraiser for our community. And this Sunday, I went to a kermes in Hamilton Street, and it was a blessing seeing the entire community come out. I was there from 8 to 12, and people were still donating money. People were still buying goods for the family of Carrillo Reyes. And I really would like to end the meeting today in honor of him, if possible. And for those that are interested in his services and who knew him, his vigil will be on Thursday at the Harbor Church off of Wilson and Fairview, and his funeral mass will be on Saturday at St. John the Baptist, I believe at 11 a.m. And I think this is one of those times where it is hard for the community, but the tenet that I always believe about my community, and it's that in West Costa Mesa, we're a family, and we always have each other's backs. So if any constellation family we can do, please let us know, and I would like to end the honor on the meeting for Jesus Carrillo Reyes. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry to hear that. Okay, Councilmember Marr.
Yeah,
My comments will be brief. I wanted to thank Councilmember Reynolds for the excellent job she did organizing events for Hispanic Heritage Month, the first time the city's ever publicly recognized it, so that was exciting. Also, City Manager Farrell Harrison did a very good job with the introduction of author Victor Villaseñor on Saturday. I really liked your speech, so I thought that was very cool to have our city manager there as well. Just a quick follow-up on the Costa Mesa Motor Inn. Mr. Curtis, could you just give a quick update for the public about what the status of that property is?
Certainly. Councilmember Marr, the project, excuse me, was subject to a lawsuit that was settled by the city a little over a year ago. Through that process, they were required to pull building permits by, and I don't have the date in front of me, but right around the 1st of December of this year. Last Friday, they pulled the permit for the foundation for the garage structure. They are very close to pulling permits for the rest of the project. We will be speaking to the city attorney's office either this week or next to see whether or not the pulling of the permit for the parking structure is sufficient to lock in their approvals at this point in time. So that's where we are in the process. We expect them to actually have permit applications pulled for the rest of the structure, portions of the structure itself very quickly.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And then I've talked to the city attorney and Mr. Curtis about this offline, but I've been hearing an increasing number of concerns from the community about short-term rentals, in particular Airbnbs in their neighborhood. And so that's something I'm going to start working on a little bit with staff, proposing potentially a policy to better handle short-term rentals in the city. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Tim Stevens.
Yes, thanks. It's always great to hear everybody speak. And I agree. Councilmember Reynolds and Councilmember Marr and Chavez did a great job with Hispanic History Month. It was really nice. The two events that I went to were very nice and very well attended and fun to go to. So Friday, this coming Friday, the 18th and the 19th is the Taste Costa Mesa, which I continue to think should be called Taste-a Mesa. And I'm not going to quit until I get that. When you see someday Taste-a Mesa, you'll remember that it was me. We have 17 of the top 50 restaurants in Orange County are right here in Costa Mesa. Something to be very proud of. Councilmember Reynolds and I are part of the Costa Mesa Early Childhood Coalition, as she said. And so we had this event. It was a screening of a movie called No Lives Matter, and it told the importance of early childhood development on our community. And two of the statistics that really kind of come out at me and show how important it is. In the first 5 years of our lives, or our children's lives, we have 90% of our brain development. The other thing that is just haunting to me is when states decide what their prison population, no small matter, what did I say? Anyway, No Small Matter is the name of the film. So when states decide how much their prison population is going to be and how many prisons they need to build, they look at third grade literacy. So when we're talking about making commitments to public safety, there's no better investment in public safety than investing in our children from age 0 to 5. I went on Saturday to the Sanitary District 75th anniversary, so congratulations to our Sanitary District. And in particular, Jim Ferryman has been with the Sanitary District for 30 years. He's a great guy. He's also a Lions. He's 30 million fish fried by Jim Ferryman. I also met with some people in the that have own businesses in the cannabis space, Measure X, and they're really struggling. And so we're going to have a review of our first quarter results in November. And I'd like to ask the staff to focus particularly on that industry and particularly on issues relating to the tax rate. Currently it's 6%. these representatives say that that's very difficult for them to make a profit, and so we should look at that. And our revenue is under our expectations. And, you know, there used to be a guy named Billy Preston who was the fifth Beatle, and he had a song called Nothing from Nothing Leaves Nothing. And 6% of nothing leaves nothing. So we have to think about that. Finally, I think close before you doze is great, but I think it would another idea would be close the door before you snore. Anyway, just my idea. I'm full of them today. Taste of Mesa, close the door before you snore.
All right. Okay, well, thank you. As you can hear, we have a very active council, often in the community, doing a lot of good work. And so thank everybody for all your hard work. I wanted to just also congratulate the Boys and Girls Club. Today, Councilmember Chavez and Councilmember Mar and I and our city manager, Mr. Bora, Mr. Dodero, were all at the opening of our remodeled Boys and Girls Club on Tustin, and it is amazing. It is a space filled with creativity and technology, and it's, I think, going to be a great place for learning and developing strong leaders for the future. So congratulations to them, and thank you to the Ardress family who donated significantly to that remodel, and it's now called the Ardress Opportunity Center. My favorite part of the morning was meeting Valentina. And she was a little girl from one of the local elementary schools. And after I spoke, she came over to me and she said, I want to be a mayor. And then I said, well, you know, we can give you a tour. And she was just so excited. She was on the student council at her school. And I believe she's going to be a lot more than a mayor. So it was very exciting to see the enthusiasm of the young people, and that just epitomized it. I'm looking forward to Assemblywoman Cotty Petrie Norris's upcoming hearing on addiction treatment center reform, and that'll be October 30th from 11 to 1 right here in City Hall. And she did carry a couple bills for us. We got halfway there with her bills, and we have more work to do, but it's the most progress we've seen in a very long time. So please come to that hearing. They'll be collecting information and testimony. Also, I wanted to address I've been trying to say this, that even though marijuana is legal in California, it is not legal to buy marijuana, and it's not legal to operate a dispensary in the city because we don't have any zoning or permitting process for them right now. So all those shops, there's 11 now, all those shops that you're seeing around town, they're illegal. And it is very difficult to shut them down. We are working with the district attorney's office and the Bureau of Cannabis Control. And the reason why we want to shut them down is because the legitimate business owners who are paying to have permits and to operate legally in our city are begging us to please shut them down because it's unlawful, and they are actually not paying their permits. They're not paying taxes. They're collecting taxes from you. If you pay tax when you go there, that's unlawful. They're collecting taxes from you. They're not paying taxes. So it is a real problem, plus the product that's coming out of there is not regulated. We don't know whether it's safe. So please don't patronize those dispensaries because they're unlawful and they are harming our public and our community and our business community. But we are working to shut them down. Congratulations to Social, 5 years in business in Costa Mesa, and it's really great that it was one of those businesses that repurposed a little strip center, and they're very popular, and they're still surviving on the west side. So that's great. Congratulations. And the Women's Club is going to have an art show. Please go to the Women's Club website, and you can learn more about their upcoming art show in November. Also, I wanted to ask about the dog park. If we could get a report from the Animal Services Committee or from someone at an upcoming meeting as to what is happening with the dog park, because I did go by the dog park, and it was a little concerning. So that's all I have for tonight. Thanks, everybody, for all your hard work. Okay, let's see, where are we now? We're going to be the city manager report. Councilmember Chavez is going to get me sick, so I'm moving this way. I don't have time for sickness.
Thank you, Mayor Foley. Good evening, everyone. I just had a couple of things this evening. First, I wanted to start with an update on our bridge shelter. We're really pleased to announce that October marks 6 months since the City Council took the historic step to open a temporary Costa Mesa bridge shelter at the Lighthouse Church. So now we're 6 months in. Since the shelter opened, we're very pleased to announce that we've placed 25 of our clients in permanent housing.
26 as of today.
26 as of today. So these are extraordinary results that we're super proud of. We've been able to serve more than 140 people since the shelter was opened, and we're actually changing lives and giving people permanent supportive housing opportunities for them to be back on their feet and off the streets. Our volunteers have been instrumental to the success of the shelter. They've served more than 2,800 meals. We've connected 72 people to jobs, and 370 people have been referred to medical or mental health services. And as you all know, mental health services are really critical to the success of someone being able to get back on their feet and get back to being housed. In total, our Mercy House and community volunteers have logged 2,100 hours of time served at the Bridge Shelter, so we're very proud of that. We'd like to thank our community volunteers for all of their hard work. And while a big chunk of the credit goes to the council for having the courage to do this, our volunteers and our other partners, I also need to thank our neighborhood improvement community outreach team, which is led by Stacy Lumley and Muriel Ullman as well. And actually, speaking of staff that have been instrumental to the success of the shelter, I also wanted to mention a couple of other departments in the city that have had a hand in creating the model and sustaining the work that we're doing and making a big difference in all of our neighborhoods. And so just a big shout out to our police department and the work that our police officers are doing every day as they field many of the calls that come in from the public. Of course, our fire department that goes on calls for service for everyone throughout the city that is struggling, including those that are homeless, our code enforcement team, our public services department, and even our legal team and our finance department that are also working on these issues. And then I also wanted to mention that our very own Mayor, Katrina Foley, penned an op-ed that was published in the Daily Pilot that highlighted a lot of the successes that we're having and why our model has been so successful. And lastly, I just wanted to report that as many of our neighboring cities are struggling with these challenges as well, we've become a resource for them. I just ran into someone from the city of Westminster this morning at the opening of the new Boys and Girls Club, and she was mentioning how they're also struggling with homelessness and would like to take a tour of our facility and get to learn best practices. And so we extended a hand to the city of Westminster in terms of knowledge and information and resource sharing. But as we also have neighbors that are adjacent to us that are struggling with these issues, we'll be looking at brainstorming on some regional approaches to the solution for homelessness that can help us all, including creating some unique opportunities for state and federal funding if possible. And so that's my update on the bridge shelter. And I just had a couple more items. The Scarecrow Festival is this weekend. So join us this weekend for a Costa Mesa tradition dating back to the 1930s. The Scarecrow Festival returns to Goat Hill Junction in Fairview Park, Saturday, October 19th, that's this Saturday, and Sunday, October 20th, and that's from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. In addition to the most scarecrows ever, the Orange County Model Engineers will be running the trains and giving away 500 pumpkins a day. It's 500 pumpkins a day. The Costa Mesa Parks and Community Services mobile rec van will host pumpkin painting and other activities for children, or I guess an adult that wants to also paint a pumpkin, and there will be community booths and more. And this fun is free and very family friendly, so please join us at the Scarecrow Festival. And then last, consistent with our commitment to disaster preparedness, this Thursday is the Great California Shakeout. And if you're not familiar with it, every year throughout the state, all cities join in, and districts, special districts, all governmental agencies participate in what's called the Great California Shakeout. It's this week on Thursday, October 17th. It happens every year on 10/17 at 10:17 a.m. And we'll be practicing drop, cover, and hold on. which is what you should do in the event of an earthquake. And so this is just a reminder to please always be prepared, have emergency preparedness plans and supplies. Remember to always have a plan for how you would deal with an earthquake in terms of your family, and making sure that you have sufficient supplies that would be able to get you through in the event of an earthquake. And if you'd like additional information, feel free to go on to our website as well. And the FEMA website would also have additional information. So this Thursday, 10/17 at 10:17 a.m., we will all be participating in the Great Shakeout. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Barlow, City Attorney report.
Yes, I just want to briefly follow up on the comment that was made earlier. We are actively working on enforcement of the sober living homes. Unfortunately, because of the federal litigation challenging the constitutionality of our ordinances, it takes quite a bit of time to get through the court process. It's not that we're not paying attention, and it's not that we're not working on it. For those that have been denied or are operating illegally, we are definitely taking steps to abate them, but they are fighting back very hard. So bear with us. We are doing the best we can. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. All right, at this time, we will move to the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine, will be acted upon in one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the City Council, staff, or the public request specific items to be discussed and are removed from the consent calendar for discussion. I will be abstaining on consent calendar item number 3, the warrant register, if it's pulled, as to payments to Keller Anderley LLP and West Coast Arborist, Inc., as I have received contributions over $250 for my state senate campaign. Madam Clerk, does the council or public request any items be pulled?
Yes, Madam Mayor, the council requests item number 5 and 7, and the public also requests items 3 and 4.
Okay. So we will address all of the items that were pulled, and we'll leave item number 3 to the last. Is there a motion?
Move the balance.
Second.
Okay. Call for the question.
Oh, sorry. That's my bad. Okay, go ahead.
I know.
Motion carries as 601. Councilmember Menser absent.
Okay, item number 4.
All right, let's see. Hold on.
Do you know who pulled item number 4, Ms. Green?
Yes, a member of the public.
Okay.
Mr. Carl Alf.
I'm sorry?
Mr. Carl Alf.
Mr. Alf, okay. Item number 4. Ms. D'Agosta, would you like, if you could read the item, Ms. Green, and then we'll get a brief staff report. And then Mr. Alf, if you want to come up.
Item number 4 is the professional services agreement with Glenn Lucas Associates for the restoration and long-term maintenance and monitoring of Fairview Park vernal pools 5, 6, and 7.
Thank you. Ms. D'Agosta?
Sure, good evening.
Just a brief report of what it is.
Sure. So, good evening. We have been working on this for a very long time. This is for vernal pools 5, 6, and 7, which happens to be the triangle between Estancia High School and Waldorf School, if you're familiar with that piece of property. We have put in place a grant with the state of California. We've gotten the permit from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, as well as the approved maintenance and restoration plan. So we have all things in action. This will give us our consultants to get the work started actually next week.
Okay, wonderful. I see no questions in the queue. Mr. Alf.
Yes, Carl Alf, Costa Mesa resident. I've been reading this, and I'm sort of, I need to finish up reading it, but I do agree on some of it as long as the vernal pools are protected. I remember a few years ago with city manager trying to put in a concrete trail, and the Fish and Wildlife and the game and the Fish and Game did not approve it. We had to, the taxpayers had was stuck with the bill to remove the of the trail from the vernal pools, which are protected by the federal government. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Seeing no other speakers, we'll close public comment. Councilmember Mar,
I'll move to approve the item.
Councilmember Chavez.
Second.
Okay, no one in the queue. Call for the question.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Okay, item number 5, and if we could know who pulled the item, Ms. Green?
Excuse me, Mayor, you had requested and a member of the public had requested.
I have
This
requested.
also relates to number 6, but
Oh.
is it okay for me to speak?
Item number 5 is the
sorry.
resolution approving the application for specified grant funds from the State of California Department of Parks and Recreation.
Okay, and Mr. Sethuraman, could you give a brief report? Sorry, you got to read the title, and then we have the report, and then we'll have the public comment.
Madam Mayor, Assemblywoman Cardi Peter Norris championed for a grant for $1 million for improvements at Lions Park. And while this is included in the state budget, we have to go through a procedure to access the grant fund. So this resolution is part of that procedure.
Okay, and so this is for the playground area, or for anything in the park?
It's for any improvements in the Lions Park
Okay.
complex.
Okay, I see no questions in the queue. We'll go to public comment. No, it's 6. Oh. Somebody else it's 6. Okay, well, we didn't pull 6. Did we pull 6? No, we didn't pull 6. Okay, we already approved 6. Why don't you speak to 7, and, because we already approved 6.
I can do it on 5. All I'm saying is, in Pinkley Park, which you're about to talk about, but it can relate to Lions Park, it can relate to any park in our city. They put up a metal arbor, a metal structure. I want everyone to go by and look at it. They paid something like $93,000 for it. I think it's the most outrageous waste of government money. I think of the trees that could have been planted in Pinkley Park for shade or something. It is ugly. It is ridiculous. So please go by and look at it. Grant money was used for it, but that's just a total waste of government money. I'd rather see trees in the parks than a structure that gives no shade, has no purpose. Go look. Thank you.
Okay. So we will close the public comment. Councilmember Mar?
I'll move to approve the item.
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Mar, did you want to speak to the item?
No.
Okay. Councilmember Reynolds? Okay, I will just briefly again thank our Assemblywoman Cotti Petrie Norris, who helped us secure $1 million. And I can comfortably say that that's $1 million more than we've ever received since I've been sitting on this council. It's nice to have an advocate in Sacramento who is trying to bring our money back to Orange County, money that we send north and we haven't for decades gotten back. So this is just one example of the $16.9 million that she brought back into our district in this last session in just a few short months. So Mayor Pro Tem Stevens.
Yeah, I just want to say I agree with what the mayor just said, but also recently, I think it was last month, we attended a meeting with Cotti Petrie Norris, and not only with us, but representatives from Laguna Woods, Laguna Beach, Newport Beach, Huntington Beach, and each one of them had a similar story to tell about Cotti Petrie Norris fighting for that for each one of those cities. And the reason for that is it's a lot of hard work, including we have staff people here, but also she listened up front. She came to and said to each one of those cities, how can we help? And then she followed through. So it's really spectacular, and I'm really proud to vote to accept this. A no-brainer for sure.
Okay, Councilmember Chavez.
Yeah, I too just want to repeat the sentiment of appreciation to our Assemblywoman. Everywhere I look, she's been out in the community talking to residents, both in West Costa Mesa and all Costa Mesa. I see the work she's done for us with sober living homes in terms of getting us new apparatuses for our departments in the city. overall, she's done an amazing job, and I just want to take this time to really congratulate and thank her for all she's doing for us in Costa Mesa, because truthfully, we really appreciate having a good ally in the capital for us.
Thank you.
And friend.
Okay, call for the question.
Motion carries 6-0.
All right. Now we will move to item number 7.
Thank you. That's amendment number 3 to professional services agreement with Townsend Public Affairs.
Okay. A brief report from Ms. Reyes.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. Tonight, staff is bringing forward for your consideration amendment number 3 to the Townsend Public Affairs contract that currently provides as grant writing and grant advocacy services. The firm also provides legislative strategy services, which will help position the city at the forefront of any legislative actions that may have a direct or indirect impact. And this would include, items such as the Fairview Development Center, what's going on with that property, and other matters relating to sober living, homeless, funding opportunities. Attachment number 1, handwritten page number 4, does provide a detail of the services that Townsend would be providing in addition to what they already do per this current contract. The additional compensation for the contract would be calculated at $2,000 per month, and that would be a total of $24,000. And the total contract would be at a not-to-exceed annual contract amount of $74,000. We do have representatives here from Townsend Public Affairs. If there's any specific questions that the council would like to ask, we're available.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Stevens.
I meant to turn my mic off.
Okay, so you don't have to do anything.
I-
You don't have to do anything. Councilmember Reynolds?
Yes, okay. So I apologize. I hadn't gotten my questions to staff in time, so I had a few questions to follow up here. So the first was on the money. I think this contract comes up every March or so, right, for an annual renewal?
That's correct.
So is it, we're paying, the proposal is $24,000 now up until March? Or is it going to be prorated for the time?
What will happen is that we will be billed monthly. 2,000, the 24,000 was an estimation, and these are on as-needed basis. This is an additional service.
Okay. So it's $2,000 per month, and then in March, we would come up for review.
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah, and then it would just be helpful as we are going to be diligently looking at everything in our budget, continuing with our budget discussions. I know we have this quarterly review coming up. I think it's very helpful for me to have a really clear sense of what exactly we're expecting from any contracts we have, right? So that when we do the annual review or get an annual report, we know we can evaluate whether it's providing the value that we expect. So I was hoping to get just a summary from you or from the consultant who I know is here to describe a little bit more specifically what we're going to be getting from this additional work. I know there's been a lot of legislative analysis by staff. We just talked about very good direct working relationship with the Assemblywoman. So I want to know what we're getting from this in addition to what we've already been getting, and then also specifically there's a mention of a strategic plan, so what we can expect from that.
So the strategic plan is going to be based on the, last council meeting or the meeting before, the City Council approved to form an ad hoc committee to address issues pertaining to the Fairview Development Center. Townsend will be assisting that ad hoc committee in strategizing and positioning the city, like I said, at the forefront so that we have a seat at the table when these conversations are happening, regarding this property. And if Townsend would like to come up and elaborate, this would be the time.
So I'm going to give them a chance. Why don't we have all the questions, and then I'll give you a chance to have a presentation. Oh, no, but other people have questions. Okay. Is it all? Did you answer all? Did you have any other questions for staff? Okay, okay, Councilmember Guinness?
According to the staff report, the existing contract is for grant writing and grant advocacy services. What grants has Townsend prepared and written? What grants have they advocated for, and what is the success rate?
Before they answer, because I'm going to give them a chance to give a
Yeah.
presentation that will include that. Do you have any
And that's
other
my only question.
Okay, very good. Okay, go ahead, Ms. Williams.
Thank you. Corey Williams, Senior Director with Townsend Public Affairs. Thank you for having us here tonight. To Councilmember Guinness, to answer your first question, we've been honored to work with the city to do grant writing for the last 2.5 years, and over that time, we've secured over $2.8 million for the city, specific to 4 funding programs. The first was an electrical vehicle and infrastructure project through the MSRC for a total of about $148,000. The Mary McAway Multipurpose Street, Sidewalk, and Bicycle Facility Project, which was an active transportation program grant. And the city of Costa Mesa was actually the highest ranking project in Orange County, which was a huge win. And that was about $1.1 million. The Adams Avenue and Pine Creek Drive Intersection Improvement Project, which was a bicycle corridor improvement program through OCTA of about $620,000. And then finally, we worked closely with Assemblywoman Cotty Petrie Norris and the mayor to secure the legislative directed funding through the budget for Lions Park for that $1 million budget earmark. So that's specifically the money that we've secured over the last 2.5 years. As staff has mentioned, our contract has been specific to grant writing and grant advocacy. As some of you know, legislative advocacy is also a key component of our business, and we've been helping the city on more of an as-needed basis over the last 2.5 years as items have come up. But this expansion would allow us to be much more proactive, aggressive, and strategic on all of your legislative needs, both in Sacramento and Washington, D.C. Obviously, the Fairview Development Center has been a priority, and we've had a meeting with staff to discuss what that strategy could look like. We're looking forward to working with the ad hoc committee that was just appointed and to leverage all of the players, including the governor's office, Department of Developmental Services, Department of General Services. As you know, there have been a lot of threats to the community in Costa Mesa about what's going to happen at that property. There are factors up in Sacramento. You have legislators outside of your district that are looking to use that property. You have the surrounding cities that are interested in using that property. So we really want to bring the parties together, work closely with the governor's office. Ultimately, the state has the authority of what's going to happen at Fairview, and we believe we have both the relationships and the insight as to what the governor's interested in to come up with a balanced solution that balances the governor's interests, but also puts the priorities of Costa Mesa residents first and foremost. And then in addition, obviously we've heard tonight concerns about sober living homes, short-term rentals. There's legislation that's introduced every year up in Sacramento. We're happy to engage on that. We're also happy to help the city introduce legislation, help sponsor it. I know the city had a couple of items this year with Assemblywoman Cotty Petrie Norris. She's fantastic. We'd love to work with her to help bolster her staff and help her be in the halls in Sacramento. She has a lot of great things she's working on, and we want to be there right hand in hand with her to get legislation passed that next year. One of the bills made it all the way to the governor's desk, so it was just vetoed, and I think working together, we can put together a strategy to get that across the finish line next year. So those are some high-level items, but again, anything at the state or federal level that is a priority of the city, we would be engaging on your behalf.
Any other questions? Ms. Reynolds? Okay, can you put, yeah, there we go. Thanks.
Yeah, okay, so I just want to confirm my understanding, because in the, this is not intended to be legislative strategy and support just for Fairview Developmental Center.
Correct.
This can be anything. So
Correct.
this meeting with stakeholders to develop a strategic plan will include all council, not just this ad hoc committee, and could include any subject that the council has made a priority.
We are happy to work with all council. I don't know exactly what the meeting is, but any priority council has, we are prepared to advocate on your behalf.
The strategic plan that, as I understand it, is specifically to Fairview Development Center, and that will come back to the council for full approval before we move forward on anything.
Okay, good. I wanted to hear that. And then how would the process work for looking at legislative strategy and on other issues? Whoever wants to answer.
So I'm going to defer to the
city
city manager for this question, because we have policies. So Ms. Farrell Harrison?
Yes, thank you. So what we're envisioning is, as we embark on the relationship, that we would be doing two things. One is we'll be creating monthly meetings with Townsend so that we can have regular touch points where we're consistently giving them feedback on the bills that are of interest to us based on our staff's research and the ones that we think, along with the League of California Cities, the ACCOC, and our own individual research, would be of importance to Costa Mesa, making sure that Townsend Public Affairs is aware of that and working on those issues for us in the state capitol and also in DC if they're federal bills. At the same time, we are going to start again a routine meeting for the city council committee, the legislative committee that's comprised of the mayor pro tem, and myself, to make sure that we're in coordination as well as it relates to the different legislation. And so then what I would suggest is, as council members have particular bills, legislation, items of interest, that you submit those to the committee so that we can, on a regular basis, follow up on those and make sure that all of the concerns of the council make their way into the review that the legislative committee is doing, as well as Townsend.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. And thank you so much, Ms. Williams. Are there any other I'll open up public comments. Anyone else wish to speak to this item? Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Councilmember Reynolds?
I'll move to approve the item. Second.
Did you want to speak to the item, Ms. Reynolds?
No, just wanted to get those questions answered about what to expect here.
Councilmember Mar, did you want to speak to the item?
Nope.
Okay. All right, I'll just say I'm really happy with the work so far, and happy to have, for such a low cost, an extra arm, in Sacramento to help us to move forward things like sober living home reform. That's going to be really critical, making sure that we have a seat at the table, and part of the visioning for Fairview Development Center is going to be extremely critical because, like you said, everybody wants to get on, jump on that bandwagon. And then also partnering with our new Congressman, Harley Ruda, with regard to issues that relate to not only sober living home reform, but also the airport. There might be some issues there that we want to work on, as well as I know there's some interest by many of us here on the council with regard to climate action and those issues. So, saying that, I will call for the question.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, now I will leave the dais so that you can address the warrants.
Thank you, member of the public, and this is the warrant resolution.
Can I start?
Hold on a second. I have to open up the public comment.
Okay.
So let's open up public comment to extremely relevant and good comments.
So if we didn't laugh, we'd all go insane. So here's tonight's entertainment. I'm sitting out here. Of course, I pulled the warrant because, yes, northbound is on here, by the way. But while I'm sitting out here, I get a subpoena. How many times has this happened? But this one's really good. Just a few things I want to read to you. Yes, it does matter because it's $150,000 plus dollars. Look at all the ones that are sober living. Yes, northbound is one of them. And by the way, did you know that Northbound moved their headquarters to Scott Baugh's campaign headquarters on campus? Don't you all want to know that? I thought you would. Anyway, so one of the things in this, because see, I keep getting dragged into court, and during the Yellowstone court case, which is on our warrant here, which we're getting paid, why does my name keep coming up? And then, here we go. I just want to read what the warrant says. They want all documents identifying my nature of employment with the city of Costa Mesa. Do you find that interesting? You know, Jimmy Buffett. Okay, how about this? All documents reflecting the total amount of monetary payment. Well, tonight they gave me $47.56 to show up at Zafty Burns, right? Does that name sound familiar, Ms. Barlow? Zafty Burns' firm, which was also the one that Lee Ramos tried to extort money from me. So here we go. Now look at the documents they want. So Keith Randall, that's Summit Coastal Living, Villa Real Estate Agent. They want Casa Capri, that's the one that's hooked up with Tim Carr, Villa real estate agent. Yes, I'm going to get more subpoenas, I'm sure. And how about SoCal Recovery? That's the one that gave all that campaign contribution money to Lee Ramos. Does anybody not see all the connections here? And why does a resident of Costa Mesa keep getting dragged into court and subpoenaed? But my favorite thing is they want all my emails, my cell phone records. Are you enjoying this? They want my emails to you, Sandy Guinness. But here's the best part. So has anyone ever gotten an email from me? Okay, so here's one. They want all my communication with Councilwoman Sherry Vanderheusen. Who's that? I know who she is. Was she ever a councilwoman? Am I missing something here? Or is everybody laughing?
No, I'm not.
Okay,
laughing.
good.
Smiling.
Do you want to take a look at this, Ms. Barlow?
Smiling.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's getting tiring.
Council, can we have a motion? Okay, motion by Council Member Mar and seconded by Chavez.
I'll move to approve the warrant.
All
I
right.
will say I'll second it only because she beat me to the punch.
Call for the question.
Motion carries 501 with Mayor Foley abstaining.
Keep going or back? Take a break.
Yep. Okay, we will take a brief break, bathroom break, and then we will start with new business item number 1. Okay. We have 2 public hearing items tonight, and as it relates to public hearing item number 1, I want to read this statement. People recovering from alcoholism or drug addiction are considered disabled under federal law so long as they are not currently using. They are protected under the law, and they should be treated with the same respect we all want to be treated with. People in recovery have a right to live in residential neighborhoods, and we are serious about protecting that right. We also know that poorly run group homes can be damaging to the community and dangerous to their residents. If an operation is having a negative impact on your community because of nuisance behaviors, or if you believe it is endangering residents, please tell us about specific problems. But we will not entertain comments that people in recovery do not belong in our community. We do not condone and will not take part in discrimination. City Clerk, will you please read the title?
Thank you. Item 1 is special use permit SL 160014 to operate a sober living home, the Fellowship House, serving 10 persons and 1 house manager at 2412 Orange Avenue. And the presentation by Ms. Bowens-Colleen, zoning administrator.
Thank you. Ms.
Good
Bounds-Colleen?
evening, Madam Mayor and members of council. Before we start this hearing, I'd like to provide some background information regarding sober living homes and state-licensed residential treatment facilities. The City of Costa Mesa experienced a significant increase in sober living homes several years ago. These homes generated a number of complaints regarding secondhand smoke, overcrowding, parking, noise, and impacts to the character of neighborhoods. Under state and federal law, persons recovering from addictions to drugs and alcohol are considered disabled. The Federal Fair Housing Act amendments and the California Fair Housing Act prohibit the enforcement of zoning ordinances that would discriminate against equal housing opportunities for persons with disabilities. The city carefully crafted regulations that respect federal and state laws, protecting the rights of the disabled while also protecting the quality of life in the city's residential neighborhoods. The city recognizes that sober living homes do provide a benefit to the community in that they offer persons recovering from addiction the opportunity to live in a comfortable residential environment. However, these facilities are often dissimilar to other households in the neighborhoods in that they house all adults. The residents tend to live in the home for a relatively short period of time and don't often establish ties in the community. The facilities do not operate as single housekeeping units in that the residents generally have no say about who lives in the facility, and the number of occupants, while consistent with state housing laws, is often higher than the typical household size in Costa Mesa, creating additional demands on city infrastructure and parking. For these reasons, the city decided to impose a separation requirement between facilities to avoid an overconcentration of sober living homes in any neighborhood. Not only does this standard preserve the character of the city's neighborhoods, it ensures that the needs of the disabled are addressed by allowing them to live in homes in traditional neighborhoods as opposed to a more institutional setting that might result if sober living homes were clustered in the same area. The city requires any sober living home to be at least 650 feet from any property that contains a group home, sober living home, or state-licensed drug and alcohol treatment facility. Sober living homes and licensed residential treatment facilities are limited to 6 residents plus a house manager in single-family zones. Facilities licensed by the state to serve 6 or fewer residents are exempt from city regulation other than those regulations that apply generally to all other dwellings. Facilities that are not state licensed must obtain a special use permit from the city. Costa Mesa Municipal Code Section 13-311 contains the requirements that must be satisfied to operate a group home for no more than 6 residents plus a live-in manager in the single-family zones. Those requirements include, but are not limited to, providing a live-in manager or managers to ensure a manager is present on a 24-hour basis, ensure operations comply with all provisions of the California Vehicle Code, such as those addressing parking and stopping, safeguards to minimize the chance for evicted residents to become homeless if the resident is unwilling to return home, required participation in legitimate recovery programs, and adoption of house rules and policies that residents must adhere to. The item before you is Special Use Permit SL 160014, a request to operate a sober living facility housing up to 10 residents with 1 live-in manager in an existing single-family residence. The site currently operates as a sober living facility. The use was established in early 2015. The applicant states that the single-family residence contains 5 bedrooms. The site houses up to 11 residents. There have been no complaints to code enforcement regarding the group home. There have been a total of 10 calls for service to the police department between January 1st, 2015 and October 7, 2019, which are attributable to the property. These calls for service related primarily to theft and disturbances, with 3 calls for medical aid. Staff also received 1 email with a petition from 16 residents and 3 emails in response to the notice for the Planning Commission meeting, as well as 1 email in response to the notice to the City Council hearing. All requested that the application be denied. The applicant submitted an application for reasonable accommodation to allow 10 residents in the group home concurrent with the special use permit because the R1 zone of the property prohibits group homes serving 7 or more residents. The application for reasonable accommodation was denied, and the applicant did not appeal the decision. Therefore, that decision is final and is not being reviewed. The Director of Development Services also denied the special use permit for the facility because the project did not comply with the requirements of the Costa Mesa Municipal Code, including separation conflicts existing at that time. Because no appeal was filed for the reasonable accommodation, Planning Commission only heard and acted on the appeal for the special use permit. Planning Commission denied the special use permit at their July 8, 2019 meeting. Denial was based on the request involving a group home serving 7 or more persons in the R1 zone. Costa Mesa Municipal Code prohibits group homes serving 7 or more in that R1 zone. The subject property is located on Orange Avenue between Santa Isabel and Monte Vista and is zoned R1. The property was developed with a single-family residence in 1962 and was enlarged in 1986. The house contains a 2-car garage, and a curved driveway provides access from Orange Avenue. Once again, staff believes this facility was established in early 2015. The separation map provided in your staff report depicts state-licensed treatment facilities, 6 or fewer persons, as these facilities are permitted by right per state law. No permit from the city is required. Sober living and state-licensed treatment facilities for which the city has issued a conditional use permit to serve more than 6 residents. Sober living facilities serving up to 6 residents for which the city has issued a special use permit. and facilities cited for operating without a city permit. There is one facility which is operating without permits within the 650-foot radius of the subject property, and it is located at 2417 Orange Avenue. It serves up to 22 residents, but requests for reasonable accommodation and a conditional use permit were denied by the Planning Commission in January 2018 and by the City Council on appeal in August 2018. The site is the subject of an active civil citation action. At the time the special use permit for this property was originally denied, there had also been a state licensed treatment facility serving a total of 12 residents, 6 in Unit A and 6 in Units B and C at 2379 Orange Avenue. However, in March 2018, Code enforcement confirmed that the operation had ceased and state records no longer shows the property as having a state license. The applicant has requested a special use permit to allow this sober living facility serving 10 residents with 1 live-in manager in an existing single-family residence located in the R1 zone. The reasonable accommodation to allow more than 7 residents in the R1 zone was denied, and the property owner did not appeal the decision. Therefore, the prohibition of a group home serving 7 or more in the R1 zone is still applicable. Consequently, staff recommends that the City Council adopt a resolution to uphold the Planning Commission's decision and deny special use permit SL 160014. Staff is available to respond to any questions Council may have. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Stevens.
Okay, so this is the applicant's property is in an R1 zone, and they want 10 in there. They're not allowed to have 10 under our zoning, and so they applied for a reasonable accommodation. It was denied, and it wasn't appealed. So that became final. I just heard all that. Okay, so now. But they've appealed their special use permit, but we can't grant the special use permit or basically overturn the denial by the Planning Commission unless there's a reasonable accommodation. So aren't we kind of, I mean, what discretion do we have? Or it seems to me like it's pretty clear here.
Councilmember Stevens, I would concur in that. I believe that this council is divested of jurisdiction to consider the reasonable accommodation since it was not timely appealed.
Okay, Councilmember Guinness.
I had some questions about that, but that's sort of been addressed then. My other question is, is this on?
It's on.
My other question is, we know there's 5 bedrooms, but how many rooms overall are in, how many habitable rooms? Not counting bathrooms, hallways, et cetera.
No. We haven't opened up public comment yet or time for the applicant to discuss. We're going to hear from staff. The council has questions, and then we will invite the applicant up to present, and then I'll open it up for public comment, okay?
And I'll explain that the reason I ask this is Section 6558 4.01 of the Government Code defines overcrowding as more than 1 person per habitable room for purposes of developing one's assigned housing needs. And, well, it's for the region, but anyway, then it gets divvied back to you. And anytime we have anybody asking for any of these accommodations where it exceeds 1 person per habitable room, we just upped our RINA by 1. So I think we need to be aware of that, and the applicants need to be aware of that too. And the community needs to be aware that we will then be burdening the rest of the community to try to find additional dwelling units if we have more than 1 person per habitable room.
And Madam Mayor, handwritten, well, it's in the original Planning Commission staff report. We don't have the plans anymore.
I
since
noticed that.
And the special use permit does not require the submittal of plans. So we know there's 5 bedrooms, I assume at least a living room and a dining room, and that would then result in an occupancy of an average of 1.4 persons per room.
Which
Okay.
would then meet the state definition of overcrowding.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. At this time, I will invite the applicant to come to the podium. If you want to come to one of these 2 podiums and speak.
Hello, how are you?
Hi there.
Thank you so much for your time tonight. I'm Mark Giddings. I'm the owner of the property at 2412 Orange, and I am also a partner with Wendy Maurer in the Fellowship Sober Living Fellowship House. You want to?
Well, so when we went before the Planning Commission, they were actually very gracious with us, and they said at the time that if we were to reduce to 6 beds, that they would grant the special use permit. And part of the issue was the 650 rule. And so our question was, and part of the reason that we appealed was because we thought that the property across the street, as you heard about tonight, was denied and that they were going away. So we didn't think that that was going to be an issue anymore, that we would be the only one. And then there was another place that was down the street that was gone in March. So we're the only sober living home or any recovery facility anywhere far within that 650. So we did want to know, is that still stand?
So is your question, if you were to reduce to 6 or fewer, whether or not you would be allowed the conditional use permit? Is that the question?
Well, my question.
Special use permit, sorry.
Right. The question was the first part, isn't that 650 rule not apply to us anymore since the plate?
Did you have a chance to talk to staff before the hearing?
No, we didn't.
Okay. So these were the kind of questions that that would have been, maybe we should take a break. You can talk to staff.
Okay.
And then we can come back because there might be
Oh, I
something that we
apologize.
don't
We
know.
didn't know that we had the opportunity to do that. Sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
it'd be better just because then we're not up here trying to answer legal questions, okay?
Sure.
We'll take a brief
Sure.
break.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, students, for joining us tonight. Okay, and I think that's the longest any students have sat through one of these meetings. They usually are out of here by the consent calendar. Okay, Ms. Barlow.
Yes, thank
report
you.
for us.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, we have discussed with the applicant that they intend to submit a revised application that would comply with our code. We therefore recommend that you remand the matter to the planning director to consider their revised application.
Okay, and do you need a motion for that now?
It would be, yes, that would be appropriate.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Stevens?
So moved.
No. Okay. There's no one in the queue. Call for the question.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mayor, could you?
Oh, yeah, didn't get my vote.
There we go. Thank you. Motion carries 6-0.
All right. Okay, we're going to move then on to public hearing item number 2. We remanded this item to the planning department, and they are withdrawing this application and filing a new application.
Okay. Item number 2 is introduction and first reading of ordinance of the City Council of the City of Costa Mesa, California, amending sections 9-125, businesses, professions, trades, and occupations requiring a permit under the provisions of this chapter, and 9-128, businesses where the Director of Finance may issue permits in case of no objection of Article 1 and Article 9, push cart and other sidewalk vendors of Chapter 2, regulation of certain businesses of Title 9 of the Costa Mesa Municipal Code relating to sidewalk vending. and presentation by Mr. Preziosi, Assistant City Attorney.
Mr. Preziosi.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members, members of the city. We're here tonight to talk about Senate Bill 946 and its impact on proposed sidewalk vendor ordinance. SB 946 was introduced by, was sponsored by then Assemblymember Laura, current insurance commissioner. SB 946 went into effect, it was effective January 1st, 2019. In essence, prohibits cities from regulating sidewalk vendors except as specified. The city currently prohibits sidewalk vendors for most public property and does not substantially comply with SB 946. Under SB 946, the general requirements are that the cities must allow sidewalk vending in most areas of public right-of-way. It expressly decriminalized violations of local ordinances and limits enforcement to administrative citations. Obviously, most violations of local ordinances are punishable by either an infraction, a misdemeanor, or administrative citation. SB 946 removes that authority from local jurisdictions. The cities cannot limit sidewalk vendors to specific parts of the right-of-way, except when directly related to objective health, safety, and welfare concerns. And this is an issue that comes up throughout SB 946's regulations. In essence, anytime the city wants to do something that would limit or limit or otherwise reduce the access of sidewalk vendors to public sidewalks, there must be a specific objective health, safety, or welfare concern for the city. Specifically, perceived community animus or distrust, economic competition are not considered objective health, safety, or welfare concerns. Under SB 946, the city cannot prohibit sidewalk vendors from operating a public park. They can prohibit sidewalk vendors operating with an exclusive concession. So, for example, if the park has an concession agreement, such as a golf course, stationary sidewalk vendors could be prohibited from sidewalks adjacent thereto. They can adopt reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions inside public parks. When we get to Fairview Park, there's some special rules for Fairview Park. Again, if directly related to objective health, safety, welfare concerns. Cannot restrict sidewalk vendors to operate only in designated neighborhoods, again, except on other objective concerns. Can prohibit stationary sidewalk vendors from operating in residential areas, but not roaming sidewalk vendors. Cannot restrict overall the number of sidewalk vendors unless there's a specific reason to do that. Cities can limit the hours of operation for sidewalk vendors unless they're considered unduly restrictive. However, if it's in commercial areas, it must be the same as other businesses on that street. Can impose sanitary conditions and requirements to comply with disabled access standard. Specifically, the cities cannot require a social security number from prospective permittees, and this would be true whether they do it by a sidewalk vendor permit or a business license. They cannot require social security cards. Obviously, they could require basic general information from sidewalk vendors about how they're going to operate in the city. They can prohibit sidewalk vendors from operating near farmers markets, swap meets, other events subject to special permits, such as special event permits. Again, violations of local regulations are administrative in nature, and no penalties or criminal penalties are allowed. So the proposed ordinance for the city would require a regular city business license and a specific sidewalk vendor permit. The significant requirements of that vendor permit are: one, liability insurance to name the city as an additional insured, an agreement to defend and indemnify the city, a county health permit is required if selling any kind of food substance, and fees are to be set by resolution of the city council. The general operation requirements of the proposed ordinance are, number one, designed to maintain safe access to the right-of-way for all citizens, especially disabled, and to minimize impacts related to noise, trash, and visual distractions. Significant requirements, operation requirements: sidewalk vending receptacles must be attended to at all times. That is, sidewalk vendors cannot leave the receptacle. No disruptive behavior, interfering with sporting events, and other activities that might affect the public's use, passage, or enjoyment of parks and rights-of-way. The general hours of operation for 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. However, if they're within 500 feet of another business open to public, the sidewalk, they may operate during those same hours. In residentially zoned areas where you can only be a roaming sidewalk vendor, it's between the hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. daily. And in parks, all sidewalk vending is limited to the hours when the parks themselves are open. Significant prohibitions: there is no renting of merchandise. There is no displaying merchandise or food that is not available for immediate sales. This is not intended to be an advertising opportunity. This is actually to vend objects and food. Cannot sell alcohol, marijuana, adult material, tobacco products with nicotine or used to smoke, vape, nicotine, marijuana. We were asked the question whether or not sidewalk vendors could sell ammunition or firearms. They are absolutely prohibited from doing so under state regulation. But of course, if the city wanted to add that to the ordinance, that would be permissible. They're not allowed to use an open flame. They're not allowed to use a power source owned by the city or a person other than the sidewalk vendor. In essence, they would need to have their own power source, but they would not be allowed to have a generator unless for some reason that was allowed pursuant to a special event permit. General locational restrictions, prohibited from the Civic Center on any property other than a sidewalk or pathway, for example, an alley, trail, bike, path, square, street, parking lot, on bike paths or mixed-use paths for obvious reasons, on sidewalks or pathways less than 8 feet wide by a stationary vendor, or on sidewalks or pathways less than 4 feet wide by a mobile vendor.
I'm sorry, can you go back to that last slide?
Yes,
These are all places that you're not allowed to have?
correct. You cannot have a sidewalk vendor on a mixed-use path. For a sidewalk or pathway that are less than 8 feet wide, stationary sidewalk vendors have to be on 8 feet or more or wider sidewalks. Roaming sidewalk vendors, mobile sidewalk vendors must be on a pathway or sidewalk or pathway that is 4 feet wide or more. Continue. Any area that's posted as closed by the city, the police department, the fire department. City sidewalks immediately adjacent to the fairgrounds while the fair is in session. In Fairview Park, they're prohibited due to the unique character of the park based on obvious ecological concerns. However, they can be allowed with a special event permit within Fairview Park. Sidewalk vendors are prohibited within 200 feet of a police station, a fire station, any city capital facility such as the corporate yard, a farmer's market or swap meet, and an area designated for a special event pursuant to a permit. Within 100 feet of schools, places of worship, daycare facilities. This is one of the specific reasons we chose 100 feet for schools is that Newport Beach has a similar ordinance, and they also do 100 feet from schools. And because obviously we share Newport Mesa Unified, we wanted to be consistent, or staff wanted to be consistent across school districts. No vending within 100 feet of an intersection, public picnic area, playground equipment, portion of any city facility, renting merchandise or selling food to the public, first responders in line of duty for obvious reasons, and vending food, a dog park. Within 25 feet of various specified locations, for swimming pool, ATM, driveways, entrances to buildings, community centers, athletic fields, et cetera. Stationary sidewalk vendors may not vend at city parks with an exclusive concession agreement or on sidewalks or pathways directly adjacent to or within residential areas or sidewalks or pathways less than 8 feet wide, as I mentioned. Penalties. As I stated, violations are subject to civil citations only in specified amounts. If this ordinance is introduced, staff will return with an SB 946 compliant fine schedule. A sidewalk vendor permit is subject to revocation on the fourth violation in 1 year. And remedies for violations of other code sections or state law are unaffected. However, a violation of a business permit by a sidewalk vendor would likely be subject only to administrative citation. Obviously, this has been a sort of multidisciplinary involvement. We've had members who worked on this from Economic Development Services, Fire Department, Parks and Community Services, Police Department, Public Service Department, and of course, my office. We're all here available to answer questions, and I'm happy to answer any legal questions the council has.
Thank you. Councilmember Guinness?
For mobile vending vehicles, we have a limit of no vehicles within 500 feet of a school. So why is it when it's a vehicle, we're at 500 feet, but when it's, say, push cart, it would be 100 feet?
I'll defer to engineering, but I think from a practical legal perspective, one of the reasons that there's a 500 feet distance, my understanding, is because obviously you want to keep you want to keep children away from the intersection. Whereas with sidewalk vending, it's obviously it's a much different type of attraction than a food vending truck. But certainly there's similar considerations.
Yeah, because I'm not seeing it, because basically the commercial vending vehicles are required to sell only out of the side of the vehicle closest to the sidewalk, not into the middle of the street.
Correct.
So it would seem to be a little bit of a similar situation. And then for a vending vehicle, and this is all in our municipal code now, for a vehicle, they are not allowed to sell to people in other vehicles, sort of like mid-street handoff. And so do we have anything in here, I didn't find it, but I may have missed it, that would prohibit a sidewalk vendor from selling to someone along the street, say, drive-up service? Because I could see that being a huge hazard.
There's no specific prohibition, however. Typically, they have to operate only on the sidewalk. They can't walk out to the street and vend into the street. They have to operate from the sidewalk. So it might be practically difficult for a driver of a vehicle to pull up and get service from a sidewalk vendor. Now, that's not to say it's impossible. I mean, we could add a requirement that they not vend directly to a vehicle.
Yeah, because, 2 seconds, they'll figure, oh, it's just a couple seconds, 2 steps away from my thing. And I could see that being an issue, depending on what was being sold. And also, I was concerned not just about firearms, but about weapons in general. And can we ban weapons, period? Like, say, hunting, knives, whatever else people use for weapons. I mean, add that to the list of contraband we don't want to see sold.
Yes, that'd be a legitimate health and safety concern. I don't believe the sidewalk vendors have an inherent right to sell dangerous or deadly weapons. I can tell you that other cities, not in this county that I'm aware of, but other cities in Los Angeles County and San Diego County have similar bans against sale of knives, other weapons, so forth.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Stevens?
So first, I just wanted to say, Mr. Preziosi, thank you. I think you, and I know you acknowledge the whole staff and all the different disciplines, did a really very thorough job on this, and I appreciate it. I just have really one area that I want to discuss with you. If I'm not mistaken, I didn't find it in the staff report, but I think in your presentation, you said one of the things we cannot do is restrict competition.
Correct.
Okay. So I'm concerned about 3 provisions in the proposed ordinance, and it's on handwritten page 16. One is number 7, which says, on any city-owned or controlled sidewalk on path immediately adjacent. And just stopping right there, I think immediately adjacent is a little squishy about what it means. So, you have specific language about 25 feet, 100 feet, and so forth. Maybe we can consider something more specific. But going on, to the Orange County Fairgrounds during the time the Orange County Fair is in session. Now, I get if it's an issue of we want people to be able to walk down the sidewalk, if that's the health and safety concern. But I'm concerned that this sounds like this could be interpreted as we don't want people vending on the street because we want people to buy their merchandise in the fair as opposed to on the street. And I think about it, like when you go, I'm sure you've been to the Staples Center after a Laker or Clippers game and stuff, and they're selling those bacon-wrapped hot dogs outside. And it's not like people, and there's just as many people, if not more, leaving the Laker game or the Clipper game. And nobody is tripping over the bacon-wrapped hot dogs except to get to them so they can eat them. And so I'm dubious that the blocking, that these vendors will actually block the sidewalk and become a problem, just based on my experience at those games. And so I'm concerned about that. Likewise, and I'm going to give you a chance to respond, obviously. I'm concerned about 9 Romanet 4 permit certain farmers markets, swap meets during the limited operation of the certain certified farmers market or swap meet. That sounds to me like we don't want the sidewalk vendors to compete with the special the farmers markets or whatever else it is, swap meets. And then finally, I got really confused at Romanet 5 because here we're talking about designated special effects events pursuant to permit issued. And it goes on to talk about business interruption mitigation and all this stuff. So it seems like in those 3 particulars, we're favoring other either permitted or long-standing economic businesses, and we're protecting them against competition from a sidewalk vendor. What's your response to my concern?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Stevens. I have a couple of responses. The first one for the fairgrounds. Now, the concept behind competition not being a valid reason. Now, under the Senate bill, competition is not a valid reason for reducing the overall number of sidewalk vendors within the city. So the city can reduce the overall numbers, restrict the overall numbers of sidewalk vendors if related to objective health or safety concerns, but competition, economic competition is not one of those. Now, that being said, the reason behind the fairgrounds for the city sidewalks adjacent to the fairground was not competition from staff's perspective, was not competition for the fairground, it was simply safety of using the sidewalks. Pedestrians going up and down the sidewalks to and from the fair need to have easy access to the fair. But there's no state law mandate that we have to do that. I mean, the city council is free to obviously decide that's not necessary, it's not a valid concern.
And it would be less restrictive to just say you can have a street vendor provided it did not block the sidewalk.
Correct. I mean, one of the sort of the default rules within the sidewalk vendor ordinance is that a sidewalk vendor must allow at least 4 feet clear space for pedestrian flow. So, for example, if a sidewalk vendor were to set up, as a mobile sidewalk vendor, there's a 4-foot wide sidewalk or whatever wide they are by the fair, they would still have to allow a clear access of travel. If the street was so congested with pedestrians, they wouldn't be allowed to vend there. They would have to move.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But it makes perfect sense. But what doesn't make sense is if that's a provision that addresses the health and safety of people being able to move, and with 4 feet on either end, it doesn't make sense to restrict it during the fair.
Then it's absolutely city council discretion to just strike that. There was a suggestion by staff, and we're not wedded to it, so to speak.
What about the other 2 items, the swap meet, farmers market, and this other one about the special events, which I didn't understand at all?
It's
business mitigation?
It's the same concept. We're under the Senate bill, the city is allowed to do that. It doesn't mean we have to do that. So again, that's entirely council discretion. That could be stricken out.
The Senate bill specifically calls out certified farmers markets, swap meets, and special permitted events?
I believe it does.
Okay, thanks.
Councilman Reynolds?
Yeah, I had a few questions. So is the impetus for updating this because right now our policy is in conflict with the new rules from the state?
Correct.
Is that
Correct, Councilman Reynolds. Because we are in conflict, the city cannot prohibit sidewalk vendors or regulate sidewalk vendors, period. I mean, if someone wanted to come in and sidewalk vend, the city would be
Right.
prohibited from stopping them.
Is that an issue right now? I was just trying to picture where I see that happening in the city. Is it something we're trying to regulate right now?
My understanding is there have been some inquiries to financial services where they can vend and so forth, but I don't believe there's a great impetus, but I defer to Ms. Telford on that.
Okay, but it's not I'm just trying to understand, is there like a specific problem we're trying to solve other than making sure that our code is compliant with the state?
Simple
I don't know
code
if you have anything to
compliance.
add, Ms. Telford.
Currently, my department administers handles any questions that come to the counter related to sidewalk vending. I would say over my tenure here, which is almost a year and a half now, we have only had about 2 people come in and actually ask questions. It's more out of curiosity, not that there's a problem that they're trying to solve. I don't think it's a prevalent issue, but I do believe it is something that we need to address to comply with state law.
Do you recall what types of vendors those were? Were those requests for food vending or?
I believe it was food vending, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
I can't be positive.
Okay, a specific question on just the proposed permitting process. It sounded like the permits would be per person. So if there's like a company that wants to do some sidewalk vending, each person would need a permit. Is that right?
That's the general intent of the ordinance, because typically, the way the Senate bill was enacted, it's really sort of individual sidewalk vendors, mostly from immigrant communities and so forth. That's the traditional way of doing it. But there could be a company that comes in and wants to get multiple permits, but everything would have to be permitted. All the sidewalk vendor receptacles would have to be permitted.
Right.
It's ideally set up for an individual permit, but we can look at doing a permit for multiple vendors.
Or okay, so
I think
per
her
cart.
question is, she has a different question.
Yeah,
Her question, as I understand it, her question is, if you're a company and you have employees, does each person that works the cart have to get a permit? Is that your question? That's what it sounded like. Councilmember Reynolds?
Yeah, so I was asking if one of the requirements is that the person or company also have a business license, right? Why wouldn't it be the same sort of entity that we would require a sidewalk vending permit from?
I believe we could end up permitting them per entity. The actual details of the permit itself have yet to be designed. That's more done at a staff level. Once the ordinance is in place, then staff will design the actual form of the permit.
Okay.
And how they will deal with multiple employees and so forth.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand if there's a specific recommendation. So if I'm a business owner and I want to get this sidewalk vending permit to do some sidewalk sales or something, can I have one permit for my business, but then any employee, someone I hire halfway through the year, be the person who's actually manning that station? Is that?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, I would expect that we would have, for a single business that operated multiple carts, we would have a single business license, but they would have to have a permit for each cart because we want to control.
Per cart, right, but the way it's,
Per
I
cart.
understand it's written, I'm just trying to understand if this is a specific recommendation for a reason. The way I understand it's written is that each individual would need a permit.
No, it
Am I
would be each
misunderstanding?
we're really focusing on the cart.
Okay.
If I may add to that, Madam Mayor.
Ms. Telford?
Some of the procedures that my department will undertake as applications are received is the compliance aspect. We have to make sure that they have the county health permit, and that will be applied for per cart because there's an inspection process. Our attorney is correct. We would see a business license be for the entity itself or for an individual. We do imagine there will be sole proprietors where an individual will come and apply. But each cart will have a separate permit issued because we will require it to be displayed and easily identified on the cart itself.
On the cart, right. Okay.
That it is a properly permitted vending.
Okay. And the reason I'd asked about whether we do have vending is I think there is interest in it, and maybe not in the traditional sense that you were describing earlier, but and we've talked about this a little bit with, you look at this long list. I'm not sure after reading all the prohibitions, like where sidewalk vending can happen. And so I don't know, if I'm a business owner, I look at this and I think like, I don't think I can vend, right? So I'm wondering if we have, and if not, if it would be appropriate to talk to the chamber or talk to some businesses who would be interested in this kind of sidewalk vending to get their take on, what achieves the health and safety concerns, but also achieves the, we say it several times here, encourage certain small business activities. Right now, it feels like we're basically just stamping it out.
Or we could just make those changes tonight.
If we know what they are, right?
Well,
I mean,
I
the
think
business, I think getting the business input is valuable, so.
And I can respond to that
I
a
just
little
want
bit.
to be able to do it.
One of the things that we intended to do, if approved, there is going to be a waiting period after adoption for us to finalize the administrative aspect of what this will look like. A part of the application process will result in the vendor being provided with a map of the city, which shows restricted areas, allowed areas, because there's no way from an application perspective, some of these are mobile vending. They're going to move. So it's impossible for us to verify compliance at the application phase, but we will be telling them these are the areas that are permitted. It'll be in a map format so they can keep that with them. It'll be on the website so the community has access to that as well. So there will definitely be an education process. There will also, should there be issues once the program is implemented, there is always the opportunity to bring back modifications to council for consideration, code amendments to address things that we just don't know at this time.
Right.
Okay, Councilmember Reynolds, did you have any other questions?
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say, I'd love to see that map before, before we vote on this. I know this is just a first hearing. I think that would be really helpful. As I understand it, it sounds like someone can't even cross an intersection, so it just feels very limited.
We get to decide what it's going to be tonight if we want to. I mean, we don't have to go with the staff recommendation. Councilmember Guinness?
It's interesting because people were saying, well, where was the issue? Number one, it is the state. And I think this is once again an example of the state kind of overreaching and basically not thinking much, pretty much wanting to obviate any existence of local control. And I think that needs to end. But, them trying to stick their nose in where it doesn't belong. But where we got our existing section was in the 90s, there were a lot of sort of ad hoc push carts. People would borrow a shopping cart from the market, get the excess stuff out of the dumpster, and then peddle it in the neighborhood. I mean, it was, and there was trash, there was noise, it was a big mess. And these regulations, I think, would not allow for what was going on there. But if people are wondering, why was it ever a problem to begin with? It really was a problem, and we had the council chambers full of people complaining about what was going on, and they felt like they were living kind of in a trash dump because of, and then at the end of the day, of course, the stuff that was salvaged would just get dumped, and not dumped in an authorized, it didn't go back to the dumpster from whence it came, let's put it that way. So it can be a problem, and it had been a problem in the city of Costa Mesa, but I feel like these rules would probably take care of that. I mean, we'll hear from the public. I'm sure they'll have thought of particular issues that maybe staff or we haven't thought of, but if you're not careful, it can really be a problem. And especially at that time, like health codes, that was the biggest issue, is where are the health codes? And this code addresses that as well. No, that was it. Because problem, but it was actually 25 years ago. It really, really was. I'm showing my age.
It's not on. Okay, there you go. So if anyone wishes to speak to this item, please come to one of the two podiums. Seeing no one. Okay, close public comment. Council, is there a motion? Councilmember Marr?
I'll move to approve the item.
Is there a second?
I will second for discussion. Oh, he seconded it already.
Councilmember Chavez. Councilmember Marr, did you want to speak to the motion?
No, this is good. I mean, we have to clean up our ordinance in order to comply with the state. I think we can leave it to staff to bring back a map to make it slightly easier for folks who actually want to engage in this. If anyone wants, I've got a couple of intersections where I'd love a coffee cart. I don't have any comments. I think my concern when I read it the first time was that we had prohibited having vendors in private parking lots, and then a closer read this evening, that was going to be my big question. That turned out to just be public parking lots. So that's it. I support I support this. Thank you.
Councilmember Chavez, do you want to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I too support the motion. I love my lotero. He comes by every day after work, and occasionally I buy his corn. So yeah, this is good.
Okay, I'm concerned about that what you just described may not be what will happen anymore. I think that this will not allow that. That's my concern. So I'm going to make a substitute motion. And how do I do it? Make a motion? Ms. Green? I know we haven't figured out the substitute motion. Okay, so I'm going to make a substitute motion that we continue this item until the next meeting, and that staff goes back and makes the ordinance more flexible so as to allow more opportunity for more small businesses to be able to work in our city, and that staff removes not being allowed to vend between 5 p.m. and 9 a.m. I mean, that's a whole group of current vendors that are out there selling corn. So that makes it more flexible and allows for more opportunity for vending in the city, and works with the council members who care about this issue and gets feedback from them, as well as adds language that would not allow the sale of weapons or known guns or guns. Okay, that's my motion. You can push this. Okay, I'll make the motion. Who wants to second? Okay. No, you can't second because you still have a motion pending. Okay.
Second. There we go.
Okay. Councilmember Reynolds, push it again. There you go.
Second.
Okay. We have two commenters in the queue, but I'm going to go to Councilmember Reynolds to see if you wanted to speak to the substitute motion.
No, I think you described it well. I'd like to see a little bit more flexibility, and I think it's just helpful to get input. And I'll do some legwork to get some input from businesses who I think would be interested in this.
Okay, Councilmember Guinness.
I had originally put myself in the queue because I wanted to know if the maker of the motion would accept amendments to prohibit weapons and also to prohibit sales to vehicles on the street. But
I'll add that.
Those are now moot.
Okay.
But anyway, but I do have a concern because about the hours. I think 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. may be a little restrictive, but in a residentially zoned area, if somebody's out selling whatever they're selling in front of my house at 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm not going to be real friendly towards them. I'm not going to appreciate it, and I bet there's other people who are not going to appreciate it. In a commercial zone, I have no problem. But in a residential zone, our residents really put up with a lot as it is, and I don't want to see even more problems being dumped on our residents. And the other issue is if we could talk to the chamber as well, because there are places where actually the existing businesses, in some places they've found some of the sidewalk vendors to be an enhancement, but in other areas they have been detrimental. And so I think, so that's an important thing to get the input of the existing business community. This is vending only. I'm not sure how this might affect buskers, but that's something I would like us to look into, because I have always enjoyed in some of our more urban areas, you're walking down the street and somebody's playing the violin or something, they have the violin case open. And I know it's sort of panhandling, but it actually I find it an enhancement. You know, you're waiting to go into a play or a concert, and there are impromptu musicians out there. And I'm not sure whether that would be covered by this, but it would be nice if we did include musicians and that sort of thing.
Would you like me to address that issue, Councilman
Okay.
McGinnis? So, wandering minstrels, people playing for change and so forth, would not, to my understanding, be regulated by this ordinance at all. They're not vending merchandise or food. They're playing instruments. So I don't think they'd be impacted by this ordinance, but we could so clarify if the council wants us to do that.
My motion, I have no interest in including that into this motion.
Okay.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem I'm sorry, Councilmember Guinness, did you have anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Stevens?
So are wandering minstrels allowed now in the?
Yes.
They are? Oh, good. Good. I had no idea. We should start a troupe. Yeah. Okay, so I support the motion, says substitute motion. But I also, I just want to point out again, by the way, I stand by that. I think you guys did a great job. So we're just trying to make it a little better. So if I look at this language, I see it, I mentioned it before, it said immediately adjacent, and then in this item that Mayor Foley brought to our attention about the 5 to 9, then it says directly adjacent, and then it says directly adjacent and immediately adjacent. I think that language is just going to create all kinds of problems because I don't understand what it means to be directly adjacent to a residential area. So I think that's the type of thing we just need to kind of tighten up a little bit so people know precisely. The other question I have that I forgot to ask is, we can't say that we're regulating the overall number of vendors, but can we regulate the number of vendors within a specific area?
That would likely be permissible because if you're doing it for health and safety concerns in the concept of overcrowding,
right,
that would be permissible. But you couldn't do it to eliminate competition within that area. So it really just comes down to crowding on the sidewalk.
Okay, something to think about.
Correct.
But I support the motion.
I would like to point out for the council is that when staff was putting together this ordinance, it tended to lean towards the more restrictive as allowed by the Senate bill. So this is, I don't say it's the most restrictive ordinance in the state, but it is fairly restrictive, but it's legitimately restrictive. However, that's obviously for the council to make a decision to make it more business friendly, whatever council decides.
How is it going in some of the other jurisdictions where a less restrictive street vending ordinance has passed and is now in place?
I'm not aware of any problems. I mean, obviously, I talked to other city attorneys. Everything is really community dependent. I mean, some communities may have a less restrictive ordinance, but really don't have a demand or an overcrowding, an issue. Some beach communities, for example, Laguna Beach, might have an inherent issue here. So it's really dependent on the community, but I'm not aware of any, from other city attorneys, of any specific issues.
Yeah, look, it's all in your perception, right?
Correct.
Councilmember Chavez wants the vendor, and Councilmember Guinness says she doesn't want to be dumped on by vendors. I mean, it's neither one of them are wrong. It's just all in your perception.
Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Councilmember Chavez?
Yeah, and I'm very happy you mentioned the fact that you kind of went the more conservative route, because maybe we should probably expand it a bit further than that. The mayor is right when she says that the original language would have been restrictive. I home work typically around 6:15 every day. So my person comes around 6:30 o'clock. So I figured if we're really going to do this to help people out and give them a chance to be entrepreneurs, let's give them that chance properly. I mean, people are already vending in Costa Mesa, and I'm almost certain they're not really going to Member Guinness's neighborhood. They tend to go where their businesses. So I don't think that fear should be as palpable. I just think we should be a bit more flexible with it, and that's kind of all I think.
Okay, very good. So good discussion. Just a couple little more specific points based on looking at these, just so that you have some guidance. And yeah, I'd like to see us open up the opportunities for more business. I think all the neighborhoods are different. As Councilmember Chavez pointed out, there might not be any vendor permits in certain Mesa Verde neighborhoods because there's not a desire for people to have that kind of business there. But there are neighborhoods in our community that really thrive with these kinds of opportunities. And there's also business areas that I think that the way it's written, might be restrictive to the actual business center and being able to have some more opportunities for small businesses to have coffee carts or pretzel carts or pizza carts or anything. And I'm also concerned that this would actually ban something that happens every June at 2 high schools in our city, and that is the little vendors that sell graduation leis and teddy bears and all kinds of things right outside the school while they're people who didn't plan ahead and take care of those in advance. So, couple specific items. I'm not sure about this language in handwritten page 15, item 9-191.5 C2 that says displaying merchandise or food that is not available for immediate sale. And I think that language needs to be stricken, and here's why. I'm just thinking about, let's say there's a vendor cart and it has little icon graphic images of the kinds of food that they might sell there periodically, but they're not selling, I don't know, lattes that day. They're only selling cups of coffee. Why would we want to ban them from having that? That just seems overly restrictive to me. And for the same reason, I think that item number 13 on the next page has a similarly, I think, over-restrictive application that's probably unnecessary. Advertising any product or service that is not related to the food or merchandise being offered for immediate sale. So I think about, I've been involved in the action sports industry for quite a while. You've got lots of sponsors of carts. Maybe it's Volcom, maybe it's Ruka, maybe it's Vans sponsoring the cart, but they're the sponsor of the cart, and the cart is selling something that's not Vans, Ruka, or Volcom. So that would not be allowed anymore. I don't think that's something we want to pursue. At least I don't. Okay, and then looking at the hours, I am concerned about, I think this has to be really on a case-by-case basis, because anywhere in the city to have it prohibited 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., unless the sidewalk vendor is operating within 500 feet of another business. That's a little unclear. Does another business mean, as an example, Triangle Square? If Triangle Square had vendors out on the sidewalk in front after 11 p.m., like a coffee cart, for example, would they be allowed to be there? Or is the Triangle Square, is that the business? Or is the business, one of the businesses that's open upstairs at that time? I'm not sure how that works.
So I think that the reasonable construction there is, and this is from the Senate bill, if there's another business, whether it's a business cart on the street or so forth that's allowed to be open, then the sidewalk vendors should be allowed to vend. And that's the intent of the Senate bill, and that's the intent of the ordinance. That's the idea, but we can do whatever council directs on that.
Okay, and then, I think that item 6, I think those hours should be a little more flexible. And then, I don't understand this. Item D1, any capital facility. What does that mean?
Okay, so if I could explain, capital facility is actually defined in the Costa Mesa Municipal Code. It means any corporate yard, other major city property, for example, City Hall, and that's kind of redundant, fire station, police station, and so forth. But that's the intent behind a capital facility.
So you're not allowed to have a vendor on any of those, at any of those facilities?
Correct. The idea is, especially for things like the corporate yard, because that's where, city trucks go in and out, city vehicles go in and out. It's not really a place for pedestrians to congregate. It's not an attractive place to vend. These are, they're not industrial per se, but, quasi-institutional uses that really aren't attractive to vendors to begin
But
with.
would City Hall be a capital facility?
City Hall, you're not allowed to vend at City Hall itself. It is a capital facility. Those specific
But this
call-outs
says,
for
or any
vending.
path or sidewalk adjacent.
Correct.
I'm not
It's-
suggesting we do this, I'm just trying to understand what
Right.
this is intending.
So it's kind of covered in two ways. One, because capital facility would include City Hall, but also City Hall is specifically called out as, the Civic Center complex. So you're not allowed to vend at the City Center complex, which would necessarily include the sidewalks and so forth, pathways right here, including
Okay.
the police station.
Okay,
Which park?
Civic Center Park. The grassy area next to the police station, that's called Civic Center Park, even though, people don't often, there's no sign, I don't think. but-
I would consider that myself to be part of the Civic Center, but maybe Mr. Seth Roman has a different interpretation
So when
of
we
that.
come back with this, let's look at that language.
We can tighten that up.
Yeah. Okay, then, items, let's see, where is it? Item number 7. Again, this goes to the immediate adjacent, but also I think about during fair time, the high school students for their fundraising for the summer. We started when I was there, this fundraiser every summer, and in the school parking lot, and they raise about $100,000 a year. And they sell water, and that would be directly prohibited under item 7. So, something to think about.
It would not prohibit them from selling it on school grounds so long as the school authorized it.
Correct.
Well-
It's because it controls city-owned property.
I know, but they're
over-
selling the water on the side, like next to the sidewalk,
So
on the
what
sidewalk.
Madam Mayor, what I think I hear you saying is that relax the regulations.
Yeah.
Normally have to be 200 feet from a school, 100 feet from a school. Relax those regulations when there's any type of special event in process that would be attractive to sidewalk vendors, or sidewalk vendors would have an opportunity to vend for the benefit of the public. That's the intent, I think, of what you're
Yeah.
saying. We'll carve it.
And then the other thing is that I know as it relates to Lions Park, we had been talking about the cafe. We've been talking about having, if we don't get the cafe anytime soon, having a vendor cart there or a variety of vendor carts there. So maybe look at item 11 and see if some of those restrictions might prohibit us from actually doing some of the things we want to do in terms of activating Lions Park, programming Lions Park. Let's make sure we're not prohibiting us from doing the kinds of activities that we've all envisioned.
Understood.
Okay, thanks so much, and I know it's a lot of work, but, that's why I get paid the
Thank
big
you,
bucks. Okay, call for the question. This on the substitute motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Motion passes 6-0.
All right. Then next item of business is, we have no old business tonight. We have one new business item. City Clerk, can you read the title?
Thank you. Is that here? All right. New business, item 1, one appointment to the Planning Commission, District 3. I'll do the report. Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. Tonight for your consideration is one appointment to the Planning Commission, District 3, due to the resignation of Commissioner Navarro Woods. For the Planning Commission, 2 applications were received, one from Florence Martin and one from Byron De Erical. And this concludes staff report. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I see no questions in the queue. We'll open this item up to public comment.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Wendy Lace, and I would just like to ask you to please appoint Florence Martin to this vacated seat. As she says on her application, it's kind of amazing. She's lived in the city for 52 years. Beats me. I think I'm here 48. But, you know, she is an activist and one for safety, too. She really cares about people being safe, whether they're walking or bicycling and driving. So she does her research. She's also been part of that other group about safe streets that meets kind of on their own. So I think she'd be a worthy person to serve the city of Costa Mesa as a resident. You know, a lot of people, just common people, residents, citizens, they apply, and I think Flo would do a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Cynthia McDonald. I've given a lot of consideration to this because it would be, I'd be sad to see Flo leave the bike committee. She has a lot of input and a lot of experience, but I really think that the city would benefit greatly from her knowledge as a planning commissioner. In the next few years, there's going to be substantial work on the housing element, and we need qualified people on the commission to address issues as they arise. And there's several experienced people, knowledgeable people on the commission who can lead and advise other commissioners. But Flo has knowledge of modern urban planning concepts that would greatly benefit the commissioners and would fit in with the more progressive mindset of the current city council. And Flo does see things from the viewpoint of a citizen. She's walked and biked the city. She's participated in boots on the ground grassroots campaigns. She knows the residents and the residents know her. And I'm aware that Mr. D'Ericol is knowledgeable and experienced in planning matters, but he tends to look at things from a developer's point of view. And that's understandable since he's worked for them for quite some time. And I acknowledge that everybody has to make a living, but his choice of working for the oil company's fake environmental banning land trust is just one error in judgment I can't forgive. Besides that, every time I look at him, I see Jim Righeimer. And it's a reminder of why we need to be careful about appointing our friends as commissioners. Finally, last night I went to the Planning Commission meeting, and this comment isn't directed at staff or any one commissioner, but I was really surprised that nobody picked up on the error that the fairgrounds made with their proposed signage program. It was a mistake that could have cost lives, or at least it would have caused injury. And had members of the Bike Walk Committee not raised a red flag, we'd have this 4-foot by 4-foot wall blocking the view of motorists exiting the driveways. So I'm certain Flo would have caught that. And it really opened my eyes to the fact that the commission has a major gap in its representation of cyclists and pedestrians, and Flo would fill that gap. So please vote for Flo.
Thank you.
Hi, Rick Huffman here. I'm very supportive of having Flo get appointed to the Planning Commission. I'd like to see, as Cynthia was saying, you know, somebody with walking and biking orientation be on the Planning Commission. It's really quite, I don't know of any planning commissioners that we have now that I've seen out on a bike. I just don't think that that's their orientation, and bless their hearts, that's okay. But I think Flo would be an excellent addition. I'm also just kind of confused about what's going on here. Mr. D'Ericol is the chair of the committee, and he has a couple more years the commission, and has a couple more years to go. I guess getting appointed from District 3 would be an extension of a couple of years for him. I noticed in his application that he would like to do that so that he can follow through on some projects for the Planning Commission that he's interested in. If Flo was appointed, he would still be there for a couple of more years. And if he wanted to get reappointed for a couple more years after his term is up, then I guess he could apply again. So I think Flo would be a good choice. We would still have Mr. Derricall. That would be great. Or you could appoint Mr. Derricall from District 3. Then we would still be lacking a commissioner. So then what? We need to fill his position of an at-large commissioner. So why not appoint both of them? Why not appoint Flo to serve out Mr. Derricall's term? So you have two ways of having both of them on the commission. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I agree with all the last three speakers. Plus, I would really like to give a shout out to Carla Navarro Woods. I was shocked at what a great planning commissioner she was. I didn't always agree with her, but she was never rude to me. She never talked down to any constituents. She respectfully listened to them. And not only that, she did her homework. She would go out and look at every single project. And I know that Flo Martin would be that exact same kind of planning commissioner. She really knows, she really cares about issues. As you noticed, when she speaks before you, she really has done her background. And I'm sorry, but Mr. Derricall has missed so many things that just flew under the radar. They're like liquor at the 99-cent store. Thank you for pulling that up, Mayor Foley. He just missed a mental health facility that was practically going into his backyard. He just seemed to miss that. You have to look at that stuff if you're going to be the planning commissioner. You have to pay attention. And he doesn't, I'm sorry, I feel he's very arrogant. He talks down to people. He stood on the dais, I have a tape of it, and said that Hispanics do not get involved in their community. My mouth flew open, as did several other people here. I wrote a letter to someone, I don't know who. I thought he should publicly apologize for that. And earlier tonight, there was an issue with the sober living house that's going to be coming back around again. And he sat up there, and he was so rude to the residents who had come before the Planning Commission. They were not disrespectful. They were not discriminatory. We had practically coached them on what to say and what not to say. And he sat up there, and he was so rude to them. One of the ladies left here in tears, not this neighbor, but a different one. I would really like to see him gone, baby, gone. And yes, I also see Jim Rinkheimer up there. He loves to pontificate. He loves to hear himself talk. And he wastes people's time. And I would love him to just, how about a recall? Thank you.
Okay. Why does anyone want to be on the planning commission after that? Okay. I'll close the public comment. And I'm going to defer to, this is Council Member Marr's district, and so Councilmember Marr, did you want to make a motion?
Yes, I'll move to appoint Chairman Derricall to the Planning Commission.
Okay, is there a second? Mayor Pro Tem Stevens. Councilmember Marr, did you want to speak to the motion?
I do, and thank you for all those lovely things you said about Carla Navarro Woods. I couldn't agree more. She was an excellent planning commissioner, and when we made the decision to go to district appointments, I remember that, I said yes so quickly to her that Mayor Foley had to go back and make sure that I wanted to appoint Carla Navarro Woods again, but it was such a no-brainer for me. So yeah, she did a truly excellent job. I consider Flo Martin a personal friend. I have a tremendous amount of respect for her and the activism she's doing around biking and walking, and I think that's incredibly important. But I'm also excited about some of the things that we have to do in the next couple of years as they relate to the housing element, and some of the work that Planning Commission is going to need to do under leadership that has the experience. So I I'm sorry, I disagree with the characterization comparing Mr. Darkle to Mr. Righeimer. I think if you talk to him about some of these development projects that we've heard from public comment tonight, he's got a much different perspective than perhaps what you would think. But anyway, yep, that's my recommendation. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Stevens, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so regarding Carla Navarro Woods, who is now, I think she's safely in Santa Barbara, away from all this, and congratulations to her. Because, and I talked to her, and she said actually, which is great, her being on the Planning Commission was a good credential for her to get what she called her dream job up there. And who wouldn't want to live in Santa Barbara? But I'll never forget the first time I met Carla Navarro Woods. It was at her interview. I didn't know her from Boo, and she had, I've interviewed, I don't know, several hundred people in my life, and she's in the top 5. She was really good. She had a great impression on myself and Mayor Foley, and we, voted her on the Planning Commission when no one knew who Carla Navarro Woods was, and I've never been more happy with that vote, and I wish her well. As for the choice between Flo Martin and Byron DeErical, there's no wrong answer. They're both, in my view, terrific. And I'll defer to Councilmember Marr. Flo's great. She's an activist. She's a personal friend. Everything everybody said about her is spot on. Byron DeErical, I know very well. He's very knowledgeable. He's also a resident and somebody who served our community with distinction at the highest levels for many years. And I respect him and the work that he's done, and he takes it very seriously. So I support the motion.
Councilmember Guinness?
I also support the motion, but first I would like to express my appreciation to Carla Navarro Woods. One of the things I really appreciated about her was she did her homework, and also there were times when she was the only one standing up for the residents. And we really need that. And I will be supporting the motion. I have had my differences with Mr. DeErical. I've had my differences with Ms. Martin. I'd say, like, for example, our views of retaining R1 in the city of Costa Mesa, I think that's something we should keep. But I do hope that Mr. DeErical will maybe work on his people skills a little bit, or maybe more than a little bit. He's very bright. I appreciate that he can look at plans and understand a project. And we do have some pretty critical things coming up here. So I will be supporting the motion.
Councilmember Reynolds?
I don't want to take up too much extra time, but while everyone else is gushing about Carla, I just wanted to add that I love her as well. I'm glad that she got her dream job. It's sad that we lose her. She was fantastic. And I support Councilmember Marr's decision here. I do. There probably are a number of differences in perspective, but I think as we approach the housing challenges ahead of us, those diverse perspectives, constructive conversations with diverse perspectives is going to be really valuable.
Okay, and I have a question, Ms. Barlow or Ms. Green? So if the appointment goes through, as it sounds like it will, then what happens next?
Um,
Then,
I'm sorry.
I'm going to let Ms. Green answer. I think she knows the answer.
Yes,
okay.
Madam Moore. We will post the vacancy on the local appointment list tomorrow, and then we will do the recruitment for the for several weeks for the at-large position, and then we'll bring it back to council for appointment.
Okay. And Councilmember Chavez.
Mayor Foley, if you want to finish your questions first, that's fine.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
I too will stand by Councilmember Marr's suggestion. I voiced early on in the process of making appointees that I think the district representatives should be the ones that decide. So I will defer to her and her district's needs. I do hope Phil Martin does apply for the next vacancy. I think she'd be a great fit for our planning commission.
Okay, and I'll be supporting the motion. Two great candidates that are very involved in our community. And I'm sure will continue to be. So let's call for the, and by the way, I am so glad that we picked Carla Navarro Woods for our planning commission, and I got a lot of heat for that. And so, vindicated. Okay, call for the question.
Motion carries 6-0.
All right. I know. Okay, sometimes we have good judgment. Okay, let's see. All we have now are announcements. I don't think there's any announcements. Okay, and then council, any council additional comments? Councilmember Reynolds.
Okay, sorry. So one additional comment, and especially because this discussion about public safety came up again, I do want to encourage all the council members and other commissioners as well to get out walking and biking a little bit more. You guys know that that's something that I've picked up quite a bit in the last few months, and it really is a different perspective than being in your vehicle. So I encourage you to do that. And I wanted to share this group that one of the public speakers mentioned, Costa Mesa Alliance for Better Streets, on Monday evening are doing a workshop on safe routes to schools. So we have heard of a number of crashes where unfortunately children have been hurt in Costa Mesa. I think there was a couple in Newport Beach as well, so students in our district. So this group is going to be taking on analyzing the routes that students are walking or biking to school and developing some recommendations to make those routes safer. If you want to participate in that, I think they're going to take a look at all schools, any school you're interested in. So that's Monday evening, October 21st, 7 p.m. at the Orange Coast College Ronenberg Center for Sustainability, which is the recycling center building. Thank you.
Won't be able to make it. Councilmember Guinness, I'll be in a debate that night.
Some of you may have noticed this little badge that I have on. These are being sold by our Costa Mesa Police Department. You notice they have the little pink trim and the pink ribbon on them. They're being sold by our police department, $10 a piece, to both raise breast cancer awareness and raise money for the fight against breast cancer. So get one. They're cute, see? And the other thing I would like to bring up in the context of housing is there are some preliminary maps out, so they're not really available for the general public yet. But I got to have a peek at them the other day that have to do with displacement of affordable housing. And one of the things that I found shocking about the maps for our area is over the last 30 years, we've displaced more affordable housing on the east side than on the west side, which is, it's happened so slowly. All those little mom and pops, duplexes and triplexes, or the things where we had the little bungalows with the little gravel drive down the middle, are now pretty much McMansions. And it happens slowly, and you don't notice it, and that could happen all over the place. I mean, I'd notice it when I was going down the street, and I think, what happened to those cute little bungalows? But anyway, you don't really, I would have been sure it was the west side, but it's the east side.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Stevens.
So I would just like to thank Councilmember Reynolds for letting me know that when I was doing my comments, I said we screened the movie No Lives Matter, which is not what we screened. We screened the movie No Small Matter. And so I'm sure that the idea of lives matter somehow got in my subconscious, but it was no small matter. And of course, lives matter. And it's nice to have somebody right here next to me on the dais who is listening to me and having my back when I make a mistake. So thank you, Councilmember Reynolds.
Okay. Well, since lives matter, I would like to end the meeting, and I'll adjourn the meeting in recognition of Jesus Carrillo Reyes.